Testing the audio. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I just keep talking because I need to make sure this thing is working. You might hear. Oh, I heard something. Give it a second to load. Don't push yourself, buddy. Keep talking. Okay, seems like my audio is fine. Don't be afraid to ask me to turn it up. I mean, I might turn it on. I'll turn it on if I have to, but usually my mic is kind of on the quieter side, and so we'll just keep that in mind. Um, so first news update. I think I'm almost done with editing the second part of my Hunter article. So I want to get that out by next week. I'm doing this around like class and stuff. So who knows if it'll get done? But it's really close to getting finished. And ideally, I can probably actually finish it like tomorrow or something, and then I can have the video up next week. I'm feeling a little rushed with the video. I'm not rushing, but I feel like I need to speed it up a little bit because I think Togashi. I don't know why I said Araki. I think Togashi is been like alluding to the fact that he's probably gonna drop some new chapters soon, and I'd want to get this out before that, just because if there's any major new information, I really don't want to have to go back and edit it. And if there is any information revealed, I might just have to finish the video version of the article and then just add like a addendum on the end, because we'll have to see. As far as streaming goes, I think I'm kind of a little bit more settled. I'm still looking for a job, so a job might contact me about like working on the weekends or something. But I think right now, ideally, I stream for like an hour on Saturday or Sunday. I think one day is like Magic the Gathering day, and then the next stream is like game stream. So because I still want to go through my Steam library, because that's kind of like one of the goals I have, and streaming is helping me do that. With that being said, we'll just hop right into. So hold on. Pull one on my YouTube chat. I'm sure there's a way to pull up YouTube chat on OBS, but I'm too lazy to figure that out on stream. Okay. I think I'm thinking about squishing my streams like on my like weekends, like Saturdays and Sundays, like 1 or something, because I think pushing them earlier is actually probably better for me. If I push them later, I get more tired and stuff, and I think I just have more stuff to do later in the day. But like earlier, I can probably just like eat lunch or whatever, and then stream for a little bit. But anyway, let's go over the art and flavor. As mentioned earlier, it's gonna be less about focusing on just the art. I decided to change it a little bit, so we're gonna be looking at like just the flavor in general, but also a little bit of the art. Also, my night shift is on, which fucks up all the color, which is really important because Magic the Gathering is all about color. I really love its color. So here we have Bombard, 2 generic, 1 red. Instant. Bombard deals 4 damage to target creature. Go back to your little war, Sun Stooge. This here is our operation, Sun Stooge. I love like the little fucking like insults they make up for like the Palatinate and the Monoliths. Like they just make up some shit like the Sun 6, Sun Stooge, or whatever. I mean there's like a very red card. You pay mana, you deal damage to a creature or something. As far as the art goes, here we have a cab ship. Once again, so all the factions seem like they have a very strong aesthetic, especially with their ships. The cabs seem more like kind of like they use a lot more rusty colors, but also like a bit of orange and like glowing like neon yellow for like certain forms of energy or like propulsion. And they tend to be like more boxy and like hard edges than other factions. Where the like factions like the Ilvoy tend to be more rounded and resemble like clouds and like filigree. I just want a really good example. There are. Where's one of the ships? Like this, it's a lot smoother. There's like a filigree shape, and you could also relate this to blue and red conflicting in sort of ways. Like sometimes the colors are played off each other in certain ways, and so you could see in this the way that the cab and the mostly red line faction has like boxy like hard edged ships. It's like blue has smooth, soft, rounded shapes mostly. Which could also represent sort of like even like if you want to get elemental with it, like blue is a strong elemental association with water and air, which are usually seen, which is not only associated with things like the mind and the spirit, but also like water as like healing, and air as healing and like comfort, and then fire is like something, and earth is something like hard or burning that could like hurt you. So you could see that reflected in sort of the shape language a little bit if you really wanted to, where you could see like the calves have hard edges, like they're more combat oriented. So that's kind of reflected like in the design. It's like more built for just to be sturdy and not necessarily for like to be fancy with it. And also, you know, if you don't know about shape language, sometimes shape language can go a little bit too far in some areas. Like it can kind of just devolve into stereotypes. Like every character who is pointy is aggressive and evil. But sometimes shape language can kind of imply things like this, where it's like the Cav are more militaristic in certain ways than the Ilvoy. So the Cav have like more pointy, sharp edges, and the Ilvoy more smoother shapes. Especially since we know the Ilvoy are more focused on like, you know, trying to figure out knowledge and stuff. You could also relate this to their resources that they have. Like Cav, that is like a planet that's crumbling away and dying. So they may not have like the luxury of being able to like be fancy with it like some of the other factions can. Like they're like theirs is like very utilitarian, very straight to the point. The ship, we just need to get the ship to work. We don't have time to be like all fancy. Like if you look at Cav, the Memorial World, it's like we don't have time to get all fancy with it. Once again, trying to slow down my talk. Even with my own videos, something does to talk really fast. So I'm trying to slow down as much as I can, but it is a very hard habit to break. So anyway, here we have the ship. And here the main focus obviously feels like the blast, because for one, we cannot see this guy's face, right? Or woman, or they, them. We cannot see their face. But the beams, even from the ship, is the brightest thing on here. Like the ship is kind of dull, because there are brighter Cav ships. Whenever I start talking, I always get mucus like building up in my throat, and it's really gross. But there are like brighter Cav machines and ships, so it's a very interesting choice to have like the ship be kind of like dull, almost as like dull as the background here. Where it's like almost honestly the background is kind of brighter because of the like aurora effect, so the ship stands out because this is kind of like a green and a little bit of purple here, and the ship stands out like in contrast, like kind of like a more of a dark figure with like little highlights. But the beam is so bright because it wants you to focus on the beam, and these beams are coming out. You can't even see the ship that's shooting this one. There's probably a second ship. Sorry, I gotta remember myself to slow down. There's probably a second ship up here that's shooting this beam right at this person, and so the beams are the main focus. They're the brightest. They take up the most space because all the explosions we see are being caused by the beams, and this person's being thrown back. And very interesting that even though they're being thrown back, the cape is fluttering. Like, it just goes to show you how powerful the beam is. It's so powerful that... Because usually when someone's, like, thrown back, like, their cape would be against their body, right? Because they're flying and the wind is pushing against the cape and would push against their body. But this has so much power and so much pushback that even as this guy or person or they or woman goes flying backwards, their cape is still fluttering in the wind because it's just that much force. And they have a very interesting, like, blade hand here. And once again, I wonder about like how color is used to communicate not only like faction alignment, because obviously Magic the Gathering cares a lot about color and using color to convey faction alignment and who's with who, but also like as a representation of almost like sort of control or influence, like where these ships kind of have this association with these bright beams by looking at it, and this person's like white and yellow, like any light they would have is being overshadowed by like this bright ass fucking fiery blast. I mean, flavor's pretty simple. Bombard, you just damage something, and then it's a Caveron guy. We actually see a bit of the Caveron Palatinate conflict. It's honestly more of just a slaughter on the Palatinate's part, because they were just chilling. So obviously the Palatinate and Monos just seem to be beefing with kind of everyone in the system to a certain extent. And here we have the Kanthar Cav Mine Operator. So, and we were also told the Cav just don't like the Monos in the planet, which is a bit... I'm not sure how much I can get into in the moment, but it's a bit of an explanation of the fact that the Palatinate is a mostly white-aligned faction and the Cav are red-aligned, and this idea that the Palatinate... It's the idea that white has of like trying to control things in a way, and then the Cav not liking that kind of control, the outside control. The Cav being like more like red and we should do what we want, as opposed to we should answer to some guy who says what's morally right and wrong for us to do on our planet. We have a Cav mine operator. A Cav has a bunch of miners because it's falling apart and people are looking for vaults and resources, etc., etc. Oh, I love how much of like this screen, like how much the blast takes up on the picture. Like it's like over like half the image is just blast. Uh, Cut propulsion. 2 generic, 1 red. Target creature deals damage to itself equal to its power. If that creature has flying, it deals twice that much damage to itself instead. When fighting, Cab always expect each action to have an unequal and opposite overreaction. Um, so once again, this flavor kind of screams like a little bit of exploring a bit of red philosophy, and the idea that red embraces chaos and how volatile like emotions in the world can be, like suddenly, like where white wants to impose like a sort of order or uh, control over a system or people. You definitely have like more of a leading into like this idea that of just leading into chaos and seeing what happens. The flavor is pretty obvious, is that the creature deals damage equal to itself when it's crashing. It's like, I guess that you could see its power being equal to its weight in this context. And then if it has flying, it deals extra damage because it's actually falling. Um, this is a very interesting cab because of the teeth here. But one thing that's very interesting about this drawing immediately is that it's not like it's at an angle, because like theoretically there's a world where this is like the horizon, right, and this is completely flat, but they show this at an angle where the cab is at an angle, the horizon's like this, which could be like the side of a mountain, to be fair, because cab is crumbling apart. Could be a mountain or an asteroid, but either way it adds a sense of like dynamicness to the image, that things are like unstable, which makes sense because the idea is that they're giving this person a sense of instability, or a robot a sense of instability, by ripping off the jet propulsion. So it's falling, it's very dynamic, and in the same way that if you fall, you might, for example, spin in the air or something, this art almost gives the illusion of that to me, where it's like you're falling and you might not be flying like feet first and with like perfect balance and control. So in that same way, this imbalance is represented by how the horizon looks. Like everything's off kilter, imbalance. Obviously a red card, so it's on Cav, so we get a lot of red and dark red and orange, and even this is a big orange fiery explosion. And red has association with fire. It's like even in the mana symbol, just because the idea of fire being associated with volatility, emotion. In the more classical understanding of like the elements, like Greek and European thought, it's like you have the 4 major elements, and where water and air are higher elements associated with things like the mind and spirit. Fire and earth are more like tend to be thought of as more basic elements. They're associated with like emotion and body, and just generally, heat is often has a connection to to emotion. Like if I say my blood is boiling, I'm saying I have a very strong emotion. I'm very angry, you know. So there's that. I do also like how jagged these rocks are. Like, it gives a sense of like danger. Like this robot's like fucked. Not only is this thing exploding, but it's there's a bunch of like jagged rocks down there, so it's not gonna be a pleasant fall. There's no one waiting to catch this thing. I don't. I gotta stop saying I don't have a ton to say, because I just don't sometimes. But the cat has a very interesting design, and I love how dynamic this art is. And then in contrast to the very red, you have like kind of a blue sky here. Like you have this very strong like red color palette, red and brown, and then here you have like a more like gray silvery moon with like a blue sky, but you can just barely see it. But it adds about a nice bit of contrast, and I think once again we see this character like sitting inside the moon, not literally inside the moon, but like they're framed in the moon, like the moon's a sort of frame. And I can't help but feel like that's done intentionally, either consciously or unconsciously, to help draw your eye to this character, because where everything's red and except for like the moon and the sky, this character sits in front of it. It also positions this person like in a place of power, where this person's literally higher up, right? They're closer to the moon. They're in the sky. They got these like blue jetpack that creates a nice contrast with like red. And where this thing is falling, I might need to take out my dog soon. Where this thing is falling to the ground and is lower lower compared to this person. And we do have a bit of interesting cat philosophy, where it's like we learned that Tunuk got ostracized because basically he changed he tried to destroy an asteroid, but instead of destroying it, it just changed the trajectory and it hit a town. Instead of the city it was going to hit. Now the city had actually way more people than the town did, but it was seen as a bad thing because the city, in theory, in their eyes, would have had time to prepare and make their choice, make peace and their choice, and with a lot in their life, and like make a choice and the town just suddenly had to like deal with a meteor. So even though we as humans, or maybe not every human, but generally people would probably say, hey, you may have accidentally killed like 100 people, but you saved like 1,000,000 people, right? But to the cab, that's not really like the point. So this idea of embracing chaos is definitely like present in the cab, and the cab are just like really just well done as far as like alien species go in a sci-fi setting, because I think a lot of people can easily fumble alien species where they're just like, maybe fumble isn't the right word, but sometimes the alien species kind of break down to like, oh, it's just a human with like a weird quirk. It's like it's just a guy with a green skin, I guess, which makes sense sometimes because sometimes you have a budget on the TV show, or it's just easier to draw. But sometimes it's just kind of weird because it's just like, oh, it's just a guy. They're basically just humans except they look kind of funny. And cab are definitely people, but they also have like traits that like, not necessarily like the meteor thing, but like for example, like they synchronized in that one town. There's like a scene where they synchronize, they step in sync, just like passively, which like I guess you could do that as a human, but that'd just be very hard and that would not come naturally. Like you're not just gonna chill in like fucking downtown in your local city, and then everyone's just suddenly walking in perfect tandem with each other. Like that had to be a very concerted effort, and I just think it's a very interesting exploration of the cab and their society. Debris field cutter, field crusher. 4 generic, 1 red. Artifact spacecraft. Oh, also back to the previous guy. Once again, the armor is very like boxy and like hard edges. So, but debris field cutter. 4 generic, 1 red. Artifact spacecraft. When the spacecraft enters, it deals 3 damage to any target. Also, I forgot to post this on a Discord server, but oh, whatever. I'll post it later. Flying. Station. Flying. 1 red. The spacecraft gets +2/+0 until the end of turn. 1/5. So, debris field crusher. This actually looks like it's cutting through an Eumedian ship. If you look at this is actually like a shade of green, and it's very weirdly smooth and organic. And if you look at an Eumedian ship, see, look how Eumedian ships look like. It's not the exact ship, but here's an example, right? Smooth, green, kind of like organic looking ship. And I think there's probably a better example of a ship that's like closer. I don't think I have that exact ship model, but we do see like for example, like this could be that thing being cut in the background could easily be like an atmospheric greenhouse or like something like this, where it's like a spacecraft with like smooth green shapes and like weird kind of like blue orbs or glowy bits. I might need to check out my dog a second. I thought someone else was taking him out, but I might need to check on him in a second. So if you don't know, there's actually a bit of a conflict between not all the cab, but some of the cab and the Eumedians. It's definitely clear based on one of the side stories that like not all the cab agree with this mindset, but some of the cab basically see so their planet's dying, right? And they're like, we need a new planet. Some are just like, our planet's basically about to die. They're like, we're just gonna have to like live in space or whatever, or like satellites or whatever. But some people are like, well, what about Evendo? And the thing about Evendo is like a frozen planet. But then these insect people called Eumedians, who spread across the universe, kind of like I guess in colony ships and stuff. Eumedians landed on it and started terraforming it, so they're defrosting it. And from the perspective of certain cav, Evendo is basically rightfully theirs, because as far as some cav are concerned, they were there first. Their planet's dying. They need that planet more. And the Eumedians are basically just like kind of like interlopers, or not native in the same way that cav are. Now that idea is kind of like debatable. I probably wouldn't agree with like genociding or attacking the Eumedians because you fucked over your own planet because you overmined it for resources, which we know. But you know, it's a very interesting exploration of like kind of like a bit of like a sci-fi like conflict. And also, I do think that the cab, I don't think it's not accurate to call the cab a warrior species or like a warrior race stereotype. But they do have like a bit of that like kind of like warrior race like archetype in some ways, like the fighting, and they're also like predator kind of. They're described as like having certain instincts based on like, were they predator animals or prey animals? I actually don't know, but they're described as having certain instincts that seem kind of like the predator alien trope. Not like predator as in specifically the predator, but like, you know, like stereotype. Like if you probably see it in Star Trek, where it's like I'm a species of the hunt. Our ways are all around the hunt. Either way, so this is actually detailing like a conflict between the Cav and the Eumedians, where if you at first it does look like random debris, but it's clearly like not only this clearly isn't just rock, but they cut through an Eumedian ship, which implies a conflict. And here you have like this weird like electricity coming through it, which the electricity here is like the same color as the saw blade. It's like yellow. And this thing is so bright, it has like light everywhere, like yellowish light. Once again, red card, a lot of red. This looks like it might take place near Cav. I don't know why the Edomans would necessarily be near Cab, but they are insect people that live like in a colony, but they're not like a hive mind, so they do have like individual will, even if they're made for certain purposes. So could just be an Eumedian just checking things out and then getting shit on by a Cab because some of the Cab fucking hate the Eumedians or see them as a threat or something just to get rid of so they can make space. It could also just be an asteroid belt that's just tinted red. But it's obviously a lot of red because red mana. We have like a lot of orange and yellow. Yellow seems to be like more associated with white generally because you don't want to use literally pure white for everything because that can make things look weird. But I've noticed in this set in particular they're using a lot of yellow for red, and I'm fine with having like colors having certain overlapping second like obviously blue's gonna be associated with blue, but I'm also fine with like every once in a while maybe like a little bit of like a purple like on a blue card. I'm fine with like colors having secondary palettes sort of that like overlap to show like almost like a connection, or the fact that not every color is separate. And once again we have that weird neon green that the Cavs seem to like. I don't really know what this is. Is this like a propulsion system? It doesn't really look like fire. It looks like lightning or something. I'm not really sure. It could be. We do actually. You know what it might be. So in the story, Sammy talks a bit about some of the different kinds of engines when one of the scenes where we see the ships flying away. And we do know there's like more stereotypical sci-fi propulsion engines, but there's also like some very interesting engines. Like there's ones that are basically just like explosions, like nuclear bombs going off over and over that propel the ship. So I could totally see this being like a more like kind of like rustic, like not necessarily the most refined or efficient ship, but it's just like a bomb that basically blows up and then the ship launches itself forward using that. One thing I think is interesting is like on these rocks you actually see kind of like a little striations, which kind of creates like almost like its little whirling effect if you look at all the rocks together. It also kind of creates like a little bit of a frame. These rocks have a bright light coming off them. Everything else is kind of dark. You can look around these, and it creates like this little area where all the shit's happening. Surprisingly, this Cav ship isn't as orange or red as we see some of the other ships, but it does have like the rest color, and it's just kind of gray everywhere else. The flavor is pretty simple. It's flying. It's a fucking spaceship, and also it's +2/+0. The idea is that I guess you cut better if the more energy you put into it, i.e., mana, the strong the plasma blade or whatever it is. It's clearly some sort of energy blade, so the better it can cut. I also think the Cav and Eumedian conflict is interesting because they're red and green. I think, especially with new players, there's a common misconception to look at things on a very surface level. They hear something, for example, they go like, "Oh, red's enemy colors is white and blue." And ally colors is black and green. And they go, okay, so every red character in a red faction is friends with every green faction and black faction. But it's not really that simple. Because even people within the same color alignment can disagree or get into fights about each other. Like two white characters might have a different idea of what it means to be morally just or morally correct or in the moral right, or just different ideas of what is good and evil. Two black characters might conflict because they both want power. They both want to be number one, and their idea of what it means to be in control may be different. Two blue characters may have different ideas of perfection, so on and so forth. Red and green are not any different. So if even people in the same color alignment can have disagreements, or people of enemy colors can have agreements and like each other, then in that same way, even factions and people within like ally colors can disagree with each other. In this specific case of the Eumedians and I'm kind of cooking. I might actually post this in the Discord. But in the specific case of the Eumedians and the Cav, you could see this as like a different idea of what it means to be natural, because we might think of terraforming as kind of like a more unnatural process, but the Eumedians kind of comes naturally to them because they're kind of built for that. So the Eumedians are green, but the Cav may see the Eumedians as more interlopers. So in a way, the Cav may see the Eumedians as like more unnatural, or just may not care about how they view nature in a way the Eumedians have a different perception on. And hold on. Give me 1 second. Also, red also has a strong association with lightning. I forgot to mention that. So this clearly has like a lightning effect going on that with that. I think the idea is that lightning is red gets lightning for the same a lot of reasons it has fire. It's like it represents a sort of volatility, strong emotion. Like sometimes if you feel something strong, there's it's compared to like lightning or like buzzing or something like that, or electricity, like excitement. Like the air is like static with well, not static. I forget the exact term, but you know, like the air is buzzing with like excitement. So obviously we have a bit of electricity here. I think it's probably why the cap have like these plasma cutters and stuff a lot is probably because of that association. But hold on. Do 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 do. Devastating onslaught. So devastating onslaught. XX red. Oh, this is like really pretty. I like how like it's like every Magic Gathering color. Got a little purple for black, green. Anyway, create X tokens that are copies of target artifacts or creatures you control. Those tokens gain haste until the end of turn. Sacrifice them at the beginning of the upset. Adapt to this, you bug-eyed plant squatters. Admiral Scar. That feels racially motivated. Admiral Scargruff. Cavron Memorial Navy. So I was just talking about the Cav conflict with the Eomedians. I'm not gonna go too much into it because that's clearly what this is like kind of representing a little bit with like the flavor, and it's very interesting that So once again, this is a card that wants you it wants you to create a bunch of copies, and obviously the more copies you create, the more you're rewarded. So the art represents with a bunch of the same ships, and they're all obviously the same model. And the idea that they're basically just going in, and even if they blow themselves up, here's another median ship over here. It's a very interesting choice to have all these colors, like all these different colors. I don't know. Sometimes green is kind of like the Woober color in a sense, which I know is kind of weird to say that like mono green is the Woober color. But the reason I'm saying that is because green can produce the most types of mana. It can green like all other colors can produce mana, but it's usually like their own mana. Like black can usually only produce black mana, blue can usually only produce blue mana, but green can just produce kind of any kind of color mana. Like you can have a mono green card that produces like white mana. We've seen it happen. And the reason for this is that green's philosophy is about growth through acceptance, so accepting the world for as it is. So it's the color to most likely accept, you know, the other colors basically as like a natural part of the world that kind of exists. It's not that other colors can't accept like other colors existing. Like there's definitely a version in which they do, but like for example, if you're a blue character, you might just go, oh well, blue's just objectively the best philosophy. And because I believe people can be changed and influenced and molded, I'm just gonna make everyone blue aligned because everyone should be blue aligned. That's the best philosophy. But green might be the best philosophy, but like also like you can't change everyone's mind. And it's just the way it is, kind of thing. So it kind of represents that sort of like acceptance, a certain level of acceptance. So blowing up a green ship that turns into a ship from a green faction that turns into a rainbow cloud of explosions could be that. It could also be the idea that like when you create copies of a token, each of your tokens could be different colors. Like this is a red card, but if you had like a green and like a blue card on the battlefield and you use Devastating Onslaught, you would create copies of other colors. So that could also represent this. It could also just because it's colorful because there's a lot of fucking red. So it could simply just be because that this is a red card. They put red fucking everywhere. Everything's tinted red, and they're like, we cannot just put more red explosions. We need you to actually be able to see what is happening here. Because yes, the ship is more like greenish blue, but it's being blown the fuck up. So once again, we have all these ships, right, to display that this card wants you to go wide. It's trying to get you to go wide. It wants you to create a bunch of creatures. We have all these trails to these different ships. It kind of seems like they're just catapulting themselves into these because I don't see any missiles, but you can see the trails here, and that creates like a nice like pointer for where your eye should be focusing on. But these all just like they're not launching any missiles. It looks like they're just flying into the ship. Which is probably the flavor is you create a bunch of tokens and then they dive in and then they die. The effect of the background is pretty interesting because it reminds me of almost like the warp from 40k, where if you see like how the warp is represented in 40k, you see like this like weird like purplish like lightning thing. Hold on. Yeah, see if you just look up like a picture of the warp, I wouldn't really probably recommend the Warhammer Wiki for like reading stuff, but you can just look at the art here. Like this it looks kind of like how you might represent the warp, like this weird like violet Wow, this image is wild when I think more. I didn't realize it had like this like shaky cam effect on it. Anyway, so kind of lightning, kind of like in that red violet ish color palette. Um, but I don't think it's a warp. I think what this represents is the idea is that it's simply just like a very chaotic and tumultuous scene, and they're amping it up by showing like lightning and like storms in the background. And also we see that swirling effect, which I think is just supposed to like grab our attention again. Like it kind of swirls into the ship. Like if we follow this, we kind of end up in the ship. The ship itself is being blown up. I already talked about the colors a bit, but also there's a lot of blue here, like to the backdrop of the ship, as if it's to sort of separate it from the background, like the very red background a bit more, like this very stark blue for contrast. And here we have another ship running for its fucking life. Feel kind of bad for him. And there's a bit of like space outside of it, so this could imply that all this stuff is like actually from the explosion somehow, but also kind of looks like a cosmic cloud in the background a little bit. And then we have a planet there, which is cool. And once again, a lot of red, a lot of orange. It's a red card. They want to let you know it's a red card. Oh yeah, so one thing that blue and red have in common is they both make copies, but red tends to sacrifice its copies. And the idea is that blue is all about the idea that if you can understand anything with the right resources, so it can understand it and then copy something and recreate it perfectly. Red is more about like little bit about emotional though, so like it can copy stuff, but it tends to be a little bit more short sighted because just based on because the thing it's copying is just based on how it feels at the moment. So red tends to have like short sighted versions of like stuff that other colors may have, like oh blue can copy stuff and red can copy stuff, but when red does it, it's just in the moment thing, and it's not really necessarily built to last, so it kind of just explodes, or just dies once its job is done. Blue can make extra turns, and so can red, but blue tends to just get an extra turn, like with not really much drawback except for paying for mana. Red usually has like if you get an extra turn, but you will lose, so you have to live in the moment. You have to take care of this quick, or else you will just lose the game. Although red is getting extra combat steps, which is just like swinging. It represents action. Red is all about like acting on your emotions, so it gets an extra turn, so it can swing again, and it loves action. Drill 2 deep. 1 generic, 1 red. Instant. Choose 1. Put 5 charge counters on target spacecraft or planet you control. Destroy target artifact. The rapacious appetite that ended their world became the only means by which the Cav could lift their civilization from it. So I already talked about this a little bit, but the Cav, basically what happens, the reason the world is dying is because in the past they overmined. Oh, Cav is the only species native so there. I didn't really think about that. But anyway. Hold on. Was it mined? Was over harvested? That's a measure. Oh, search for a new home. Stabilize their section of their home. Continue having resource. So once a verdant and rich and resource-rich terrestrial world, it's now a ruined husk decaying away into space, picked over by scavengers, wildcat miners, imperial memorial teams, and treasure hunters. Calderon crumbled after centuries of Cav industrial mining of the world for its rich moxite veins, weakening its integrity so much that it began to fall away into space, prompting the Imperial Cav to rapidly expand their space program to ensure the survival of their species. So, first of all, it's a bit of commentary, obviously, about treating the environment and being sustainable, common sci-fi thing, but also there's like a bit of, I think, critique of like red philosophy here in a way. All the color philosophies have like strengths and weaknesses and things they can be right about and good about. Not every color philosophy is always going to be right about everything, because the people that subscribe to them will also be imperfect. So one of the weaknesses of red philosophy is obviously its short-sightedness. Now you can have a more patient or go with the flow red character, but this is with the idea being explored here is that red is about freedom through action. It's about acting on your emotions, not, you only live one life. You got to act now. So it's this idea that they got like a whiff of like these resources, and then what they want is like, oh, I want money, I want resource, and they didn't really think they didn't really think far ahead enough into the future. They were just like, what do you like? Red's like, what do you want? You should do that. So they're like, what I want fucking money and moxite. So they just went with that, and they didn't really stop until it was too late. So that's a very interesting take on like a bit of a red faction and maybe like a critique of like red philosophy. It's important to note there that like all the colors have like had moments where they're the bad guys and the good guys, etc. This is not me saying that classic. That's not me. That's not me saying that red will always do this, but it is like but obviously certain philosophies will encourage certain behaviors. I think people make the mistake of assuming that color philosophies are they make the mistake of assuming color philosophies are personality tests in the same way that like a zodiac is. Which isn't entirely true. What the color philosophies are is they're big philosophical archetypes. Like they're not personality archetypes. They're philosophical ones. Like altruism. That's like a philosophy. Stuff like that. So what happens though is that Magic the Gathering is a game, so it needs to more be able to easily convey certain things. So sometimes they do associate certain personalities in game with like certain color philosophies, even though the reality is probably more complicated. But also that certain philosophies are more likely to attract certain kinds of people, right? Like red philosophy is more likely to attract more impulsive or emotionally oriented people because it's all about embracing your emotion. That doesn't mean literally every single person who'd fall under red philosophy is like a hothead. But someone who wants to embrace their emotion, who wouldn't want to fight against it, they're more likely to be red aligned. Anyway, so Drill Too Deep also has a connection between Earth and Fire and Red. I've talked about it a bunch, so I'm not gonna go into it again. But once you get away that Earth and Fire, put a 5 charge counters on target spacecraft or planet you control. So this is actually kind of an interesting choice for a red card because when I think red, I don't necessarily think like counters, but it makes sense because red has abilities like haste, right? And haste is all about it lets you play stuff faster. One thing that red is all about is since red is all about action and acting on how you feel, like I want to play this card now, and it rewards you for playing the card now because the card enters with haste, so it wants to go in fast. So red just tends to have a lot of fast stuff. So the idea here is that in the same way it can grant creatures haste, it can help you station a spacecraft or planet faster and then get that shit swinging. And obviously the flavor here is like you're drilling, and the more you drill, like it attracts more people to station the planet, or more people to man the spacecraft to get the shit off the planet. And destroy target artifact, red just has artifact destruction. I think the idea that red is more likely to act impulsively and then thus just destroy something it doesn't like or does. But red typically destroys artifacts, but not really enchantments. And the idea behind that is that red's connection to like physicality, like the idea of doing what your body and emotions want, but enchantments are tend to be a more ephemeral, like conceptual thing. So the idea that maybe red might overlook that sometimes, which gives red a harder time destroying enchantments, because red might not because you can't always just blow up an enchantment, and the same way you can just blow up like an artifact or blow up a person with raw damage. I'd also argue that red's ability to destroy to not be like red doesn't really get like creature destruction a lot. It just does a lot of damage, and you could argue that even that's like a sort of representation of a sort of straightforwardness to red's like philosophy. Like the idea is like I want to hurt you, I'm just gonna fucking punch you. I'm not gonna like do some like weird magic shit and destroy you. I'm gonna go for the most straightforward, most obvious way to destroy creatures, which is just deal damage until it dies. Anyway, this starts pretty good. We have like a lot of once again, kind of dynamic, where this thing is coming at an angle instead of coming straight down, which adds a bit of dynamic. We don't really know what the horizon is, so I can't say if the horizon itself is like at an angle, but this is enough to me to imply like a lot of dynamicism, and the fact that since this part of the drill is closer to us than this part, it's bigger and creates like this amazing like foreshortening effect. And then we have like the lava and fire erupting out of like as this place is being drilled into. This thing actually looks like it's silver, but obviously this is all very tinted red because of all the energy and lightning and fire coming off. And lightning and fire are obviously associated with red. And even I love how it looks like kind of blurred. Like there's so much force, like it looks kind of blurred, like all the heat and energy coming off. And here we have a ship, which is just like kind of blue for contrast. I don't really know if this is a cab ship. It's kind of hard to tell. It could be like a pinnacle ship, but it has a nice blue for contrast. Just so you see it, and I think it's kind of just being used a bit for scale. It's kind of hard to say for me if it's definitely being used for scale because I have no, because usually when you use things for scale, they use things like, I don't know, like people or elves, like humans or elves and stuff like that. That, like, you know, if they're human size, we have a better idea of like how this looks comparatively. But obviously, you can't just put a human here because uh they're probably fucked. And the idea is that this card doesn't target like normal like creatures. Like, it has to be like an artifact. So I guess the idea, like putting a person here being like blown up, which wouldn't make a lot of like sense for what the card does. And so I think this idea is that the idea is this spaceship is being this spaceship is being used as a point of reference. Where like, however, like spaceships have to be a certain size, obviously. So how big you think this is kind of like up to the viewer interpretation. But however big do you think it is, this thing is way bigger, fucking bigger. So this thing is massive no matter how big you interpret this ship to be. It's probably decently big. And one thing I do notice is that as you get closer to like the drill, the center actually looks so. You have like this bright fiery area, but it kind of gets darker here, and then it goes back to like lighter as you get farther away. So here's like the focus where it gets darker, darker, and like this bright spot, so you can clearly see it. And as you get farther away, it gets kind of brighter again. And the drill's kind of like the opposite, where it kind of gets brighter here, and then it gets darker as you get away because it's just farther away from the light. But also creates a nice contrast with all like this fire and lightning up here. And this is by Bartek Fidikzak. I gotta start reading I keep forgetting to read the artist. You would think that I should do that because just logically, if I'm talking about the art, I should appreciate the artist. And also, like the drill, the ship is also silver, but it's just bathed in red because of all this shit happening. So I guess also the idea is that the rapacious appetite that ended their world became the only means by which Cav could lift their civilization from it. This could reference the also we know that the Cav have like a station, like a kind of like a station going off Cav that was, I think it's like the Eternity Elevator maybe. Oh yeah, that's Cav. So it's like the Eternity Elevator. So you could interpret this also as like maybe the founding of the Eternity Elevator, considering the flavor text, or maybe maybe the idea that like the flavor is that either you drill too deep and you strip mine your planet by accident, or you use this, or you help man a spacecraft or planet because everyone's evacuating. Frontline War Rager. 2 generic, 1 red. Creature Cav Soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more attack creatures, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Cav have more than ideology or profit in the line. They fight for home. So, once again, we have profit because Cav was overmined, but also it's still like a pretty good resource. Like, people go to the ruins to mine stuff. So this card, once again, we have like multiple creatures in the frame, which kind of alludes to the fact that you want more than one creature playing with this guy, because the idea is you go wide, and the wider you go, the more creatures you can have to tap or swing in to tap, and then put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. This person's like Censor. Obviously, they have the orange rust colored armor. The Cav tend to be a little bit green. This person's the main focus because they're literally like elevated on the surface. It's not super high. Like, you kind of get that the fact that it's not like kind of like hoity-toity per se, because they're not like super high, but they're elevated enough that you're like your eyes are drawn to this person, and the spotlight's literally on them. You can see like this glowing light on them. And these people are way less detailed. You can't even see the faces of these people, but you know they're there. It's very interesting. Obviously there's a lot of like orange and dark, like kind of dark red here once again, but there's also like this very blue of space, like a very blue take on space, and then some sort of blue light coming down on this person from the sky, and then this little outcropping is literally like a spotlight on them. So this helps draw like a really big contrast where all these like warm colors like red and orange and dark brownish gray red. This person's like has a warm color palette, but they're being bathed in like a cool colored light for contrast. And it's kind of like maybe represents like a sort of hope, even the sort of like the fiery wrath of Cav that is surrounding this person, but here they are showing like a window into like maybe hope or escape or something like that. And once again, we have like the neon green for the for like some of the glowy bits. And I've talked about this before, but colors like yellow and purple are complementary because they sit opposite from each other on the color wheel. And the same is true of red and green. People usually think of like red and blue as opposites, but if you pull up like a color wheel, typically, depending on how detailed the color wheel is, it's actually red and green that are on opposites. So it's which is kind of funny because red and green are ally colors within Magic the Gathering. But the point here is the point here is that even though there's obviously this, like, they're like more like, obviously the caps tend to be more like yellow green when they like reference that, but the point here is that red and green can create a very nice contrast. Here is that you have yellow, green, and red. So I think that's why they picked the yellow green color. Also, they probably picked yellow green because it's a bit, just picking just normal green would probably look a little bit too like green aligned, but um. And I think that the idea here is that it's the frontline War Rager. So I was talking about how this guy doesn't seem that hoity-toity. And here we can see this with the fact that the frontline War Rager, like this guy, this person, they, them, she, he, him, this person fights with the crew. Yes, they are elevated above in this moment, but you don't get the sense that they like are like the person who sits back and makes all the orders while other people swing in. And it's kind of reflecting the fact that so this card rewards you for so the idea here is that typically when you tap a creature, it means a creature did something. So this card rewards your creatures for acting or doing something normally. So yes, your creature can be tapped by, for example, like a white ability or something. But the idea is that, for example, if you station a ship, crew a vehicle, swing in to attack, activate an ability, that will cause the creature to tap, which means that, like, in this case, tapping represents performing an action. So if you perform an action, you're rewarded by frontline rage, which is like, good, you should be going in, right? And then this card not only rewards you for tapping other creatures, but also it can tap itself. If you can get this to tap itself, it puts a +1/+1 counter. So here we have that sense of like this person's like kind of in the trenches with their fellow comrades. They're not like separate from them. So just like how you're rewarded for having other creatures act, it's also rewarded for acting and not just sitting there. And then it puts +1/+1 counter, and the more +1/+1 counters on it, the better you can swing in with it, safer, and then which will lead it to being tapped more often, and then it'll help proc itself a bit more. I mean, Cav soldier. I'm just thinking about if I want to say anything else. Oh yeah, once again, we have a little bit of like notice how the rock is kind of like sideways, it's like perfectly even. Obviously, it's just a natural landscape, so you could just interpret it as that. You could also interpret it as like maybe a bit like getting ready for a fight, like a bit of dynamic, a bit of a dynamic aspect to the picture or the drawing of what is happening here. I will say it's interesting how like as we get close, so here it's clearly more like cooler magma because it's like more like rocky, but I mean magma is rock, but I mean more like solid rock. But as you get closer to like the background, like it becomes more molten, more orange, which helps contrast it greatly against like the blue sky. Like because they could have easily just done it so like it's either the opposite direction, or like as we get closer, it gets hotter, or it's just all like the same color. But a very interesting tone that they go with, where it starts off actually kind of like more cooler, and then it gets hotter and hotter and more orange and red as a result as we get closer to the backdrop. Yeah. Full bore. So bore is into dig. This is a very monstrous looking cab, very big looking cab. Um, full bore, run red, instant. Target creature you control gets +3/+2 until end of turn. If that creature was cast for its warp cost, it also gains trample and haste until end of turn. The mining gear that crumpled their planet could also deal terrible damage to flesh. So I mean, yeah, once again we're having that cab reference to being overmined, over harvested. This cab in particular looks like it's on something. I don't know. It's got like these weird like wisp of red coming off of it. It looks kind of like big and red. Could just be a red cab. It looks like weirdly muscular even for a cav, but it could just be we know that as far as species go on the edge, humans are actually like one of the less generally dimorphic species. Like species tend to be more dimorphic than humans just in general, so it could just be a different build of cav. So obviously the flavor here is just going into attack, because you're using the drilling technique or equipment can be used to damage stuff. And if you warp something, the idea is that if you warp it in, you can suddenly give it haste and swing. So that's just a nice mechanic combo. Also gains trample and haste, like it just moves so fast and then hits really hard. once again, we have. I mean, there's a lot of red, but this time the cab is red, which is an interesting choice. A red cab, and then it seems like there's some kind of like power flowing through it. Like there's like weird energy coming like the cracks and like their scales and flowing out of them. So it seems like they're being influenced by something. Not necessarily like in the sense that like something's mind controlling them, but more in the sense that like maybe we know that cab have like stimulants, for example, based on like one of the side stories that can be used to increase their effectiveness in combat. So it could be that. And they're smashing something. You can't really tell, but I guess what they're smashing doesn't really matter. Very interesting how this lower half is like very like orange and warm color, but up here it's like kind of like greener, cooler, like more like gray and dull. So your attention's brought down here. And they're just tearing through someone or something. Bringing their weird drill shit down. I do like how this is like quickly like equipment that has like it's like built to like reinforce, like it's some sort of like exosuit almost, like it's built to like help reinforce them and give them extra strength. And here we have this person yelling in the background. I like how their mouth is glowing. See, again, cab mouths don't like normally glow is the thing. So that tells me that they're probably under some sort of influence of some sort of magic or drug or something, because cab don't normally just have that. And once again, we have this is more kind of like yellow. It kind of reminds me of like a lot of construction equipment, how that's like often yellow. So that's an interesting choice a bit there. And once again, it's a little like obviously it has some smooth shapes, but it's clearly a bit more blocky and less like smooth and organic looking than some of the other faction stuff. There's also glass, so something being broken. There's like glass everywhere, rocks, a lot of destruction. Olivier Bernard. Galvanizing saw ship. 5 generic, 1 red. Artifact spacecraft. Station. Flying haste. 6/5. So this is another saw ship. Was the other one also a saw ship, or was that a debris cutter? I guess that's a debris field crusher. It's kind of weird because it doesn't look like it's crushing anything. It looks like it's cutting through stuff, but whatever. So galvanizing saw ship. So galvanizing is basically like to, I think, give a charge. I assume like a positive or negative charge, and like an electrical charge. Hold on. To shock or excite someone, they're taking action. A protective layer of zinc, sheeting. I guess there's a relation to excitement there, which would make sense for red as like a color to lean into emotion or representing emotion on cards. So I mean, it's flying because it's a ship. It has haste because it's moving really fast. It looks like it's like just either cut through like this giant rock or like it's just coming out of it. Either way, it definitely conveys it's moving very fast. There's like this trail to show you like basically how much. The trail shows not only its direction, but I guess it could convey how fast it's moving and in what direction. Like it's like it just came out of this thing. It's flying super fast. There's heat coming off its little cutters here. This is definitely like one of the more complex ship designs, and I'm just in awe of like how complex like all the little bits on the ship there are. And once again, we have like it's hard to tell if this is yellow or orange. I don't know if it's yellow with like red lighting making it look a little orange, or if it's like just actually a shade of orange. But once again, we have red everywhere. And I forgot to mention that all the ships seem like they're full art. They go outside the frame. So planeswalkers go outside the frame, but in a different way. Like they kind of just literally poke out of the picture, like here, like Tezzeret's head and this weird wisp stuff. So I think the idea with the planeswalkers though is it's the idea of that they can planeswalk and thus leave a situation at any moment, and in a way that most characters cannot. Although the Edge is an exception because it doesn't seem like Tezzeret can just leave. It doesn't seem like planeswalking necessarily works the same way on the Edge. But with the ships, they don't actually leave the frame, but there's more space. So I guess the idea is that with ships, you have because it's a science fantasy space opera setting. The idea, I guess, here is that ships grant you an extra level of freedom. Like the world is more open to you in the way that other things are. The other cards are not by default. Like if you're just a person, you can only go so far. But on a ship, you can explore space. Not a ton to say, just rocks everywhere and red. There's like a weird bit of green up there. I don't really think it means anything. It's just interesting to think about. There's also like maybe a little bit of a lens flare there. I'm not really sure, but I just love how detailed this thing is. It really gives the vibe of complicated construction equipment, and it even looks kind of uneven. Like there's a bunch of like extra shit here that isn't on this side. Like it's been slapped together. And they're just they're like recycling stuff. They're making use of stuff of what they got. Still like a lot of like hard shapes and edges in certain areas, but yeah. Invasive maneuvers. I don't think I've seen anyone use this card in Arena. So invasive maneuvers is a pun on evasive maneuvers. Evasive maneuvers is obviously if you're focusing on dodging and evasion. Invasive means like I guess you're invading something and you're attacking. And here it looks like once again an Eumedian ship. Like this kind of like seems like it's kind of green and smooth and organic. So it looks like it's smashing through an Eumedian ship of some sort. Once again, if we go down here, we can kind of see like atmospheric greenhouse is a pretty good example of what like a lot of their ships look like. So once again, looks like kind of get some Eumedian ship in the background. Invasive maneuvers. 1 generic, 1 red. Instant. Invasive maneuvers deals 3 damage to target creature. It deals 5 damage instead if you control a spacecraft. It saves a lot of ammunition. No, I'm not kidding. Captain Mayov, Cavara Memorial Navy. So despite the fact that it's called invasive, it does not look like the ship is being like kamikazed. It is flying to the ship. It looks like it's bulky enough or sturdy enough to be able to fly through it and survive undamaged, because if you look at the card here, it deals 3 damage to target creature. And then if you control a spaceship, it deals more, because I guess the idea is that you're ramming your spaceship into it, but your spaceship actually isn't actually in any danger. This looks like some kind of Eumedian ship, because it's kind of hard to tell because of all the blue lighting, but it looks kind of green here, and it has like some of the Eumedian like shapes, especially like the circles, kinda, and some like the weird like kind of like vents here. So it looks like it's just blasting through here, and then there's like it's creating like leaving explosions like aether. Like it smashed through, it hits something, something's exploding outward. The ship is exploding with whatever is erupting. I assume this blue stuff is probably aether or something. I don't really know what they use particularly on fuel, like as fuel on the edge, besides like mana and otherwise normal fuel like nuclear fuel and stuff. So I mean, so this is a very interesting card because like there's a lot of blue happening here, but this ship itself is very red. And it's obviously the idea is that the ship is red, so you understand the card is red. I don't really know what this is. I don't know if it's like a bomb or like propulsion or what, but just basically just ramming through this poor Eumedian ship, and then explosions happening everywhere. I've already talked a little bit about the Cav Eumedian conflict, so I'm not gonna go into detail about that. But so here we have the ship is like creating some sort of like red light here. And it's also actually like a way to draw your eye, where there's no way you miss what's happening, because everything is literally pointing to this ship. Like if you for some reason we're looking over here, you like what's happening, and you look over here, and then you see more, and you're like holy shit, and you see this thing just ramming through. I will say it's interesting how this ship looks a little bit more ornate with like these little symbols than some of the other cap ships we saw. Like a lot of them look very just kind of industrial, just meant to do what they want to do, with like not a whole lot of like fancy filigree or anything. But here we have like a little bit of like patterns on here, and it is run by Captain Mayov of the Cavern Memorial Navy. So if it's like a high-ranking ship or a ship of a high-ranking official, it would make sense. Cav Landseeker. Hold on, we'll just leave you here. Cav Landseeker. Creature, Cav Soldier. Menace. This creature can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. When this creature enters, create a lander token. At the beginning of your end step, on the next turn, sacrifice that token. So I think the idea here is that this Cav Landseeker is looking for like something on Cav. So Cav is, despite dying, it has a bunch of resources coming off of it because it's crumbling apart. And also there's like ancient like vaults and stuff and resources that can be preserved and stuff. So I guess the idea is that this person is looking for stuff on Cav, is just looking for like stuff to collect, which is represented of course by this thing explores, it looks around, and it finds you a land or a lander token, which you can then use to find a land. And of course the lander token could also represent this thing coming down in a lander, but Menace is interesting. I guess the idea, because Menace is like a form of evasion, so maybe the idea is that this thing knows the land so well that it can like navigate it better, and this has Menace as like a form of evasion. It can maneuver in ways that you cannot, so it takes more than one creature to block it. Could also just be that it's scary. Who knows? And And interesting that you sacrifice the token, which just makes sense for red. It's like the idea that red will give you something. It's like it's acting on emotions. So like if you want to use it, use it. If you don't want to use it, you don't get to use it, kind of thing. So very just like in the moment, very impulsive red thing, like almost like an impulsive land drop, I guess, in a way. So this person's obviously the main focus. They have like a sort of like reddish color palette and with orange, and it's very interesting that like once again this the landscape is not completely even in some areas. Like this could just be mountains. Like the horizon could be completely flat, and this could be like mountains or something. But it's kind of uneven in ways that other planets don't see. So I'm starting to think that it might not just be like obviously in some cases I think it represents like action or being dynamic, but it could also represent how unstable Cav itself is as a planet, and the idea that where other planets are stable and have more flat or rounded horizons as you would expect, the Cav that is literally falling apart. So it's represented by the fact that even the ground itself is unstable. There was like a green card of like a guy looking for like searching around. Yeah. So like here, if you look at like Galactic Wayfarer, the horizon's more flat. It's way more flat. But Galactic Wayfarer seems like they're on Adegia, and Adegia isn't like a dying planet that's exploding into oblivion. So that could also be part of it. Also, we see like bits of Cav and like asteroids floating up. And there's a Cav ship, but it's not the main focus because it's almost like the exact same shade as the background. So you could easily miss it if you weren't paying a lot of attention to the art. Although there is little glowing bits. So obviously this is the main focus. The person who's on the ground is the main focus. Everything else in the background is like more blended together. So you might miss it. Also 4/3 wants you to attack. So I guess also I was gonna say also Menace wants you to attack, so maybe the idea is also that it wants you to like go in and look for stuff, but it doesn't really proc off attack, just off entering. So Caveron Harrier. I think Harry is to harass someone, basically to bother them. Hold on. Persistently carry attacks on an enemy's area. Persistently harass. So I got one of the definitions. Could also mean attack, which would make sense. So that's confused with Harry or Hurry. A person who engages in persistent attacks on others or incursions to the land. I think the idea is that it's persistently attacking others because this looks like the art looks like it's on Cav. If it was like on is it Evendo or something? Sure, it would make sense. But I think the idea is that it's just consistently attacking. Oh my god! Sorry, I had to reset. Caveron Harrier, 1 red, artifact creature, robot soldier. Whenever this creature attacks, you may pay 2. If you do, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token that's tapped and attacking. Sacrifice the token at the end of combat. I like how that's kind of referenced with this little guy in the background. Once the security of a Moxite mine, now a ghost in a hollowed out cavern. So yeah, it's the idea that it's just basically just a robot that's attacking anything that enters these days because there's nothing there anymore. Obviously, with a name like Harrier, we know it cares about attacking and harassing people a lot, which represents the fact that it rewards you for attacking, and then when it creates a robot token, that robot token's also attacking. It does seem like some like smoother than some of the other Cav machines we've seen. That's not like a critique, because I think sometimes people get so into like a specific way that something looks like within like a fictional setting. They go like I don't know. They'll be like, wow, this doesn't look like something they make at all. But like in real life, like sometimes people have more deviations in like technology and stuff. It doesn't like all exactly the same all the time. So I think it's okay to have like some exceptions like this where this might look a bit smoother. Even though it still looks a little bit clunky in some areas. Like there's like a box here. I don't really know what that is. But obviously wants to attack, so it has 2 fucking molten hot fucking sword blades to stab you, lets you know this thing wants to attack you. And it makes tokens, and so here's like a little guy to let you know that it summons other little guys. So once it sees you and attacks you, it summons other security bots to come shank you, I suppose, with scalding hot lava blades. Obviously a lot of red, dark red, and yellow and orange. Very interesting that this one, so this one obviously is like, they don't really have faces, But it's very funny that this one has like an ominous glowing little eye, and this one also has a glowing eye. But this one's also like the main focus, and you can tell because it is bathed in a spotlight. Like there's light shining down, but light does not really hit this thing very much. And this thing is literally like has like a shine effect on it, so you can clearly see it. Although part of it's kind of in shadow, which is kind of an interesting choice, which helps emphasize the glowing hot blade it's going to shank you with if you give it the if you let it get too close. Um, there's a bit of like action that's kind of implied, I suppose, because like these rocks are coming down. So either this thing's just stabbed its leg into this, and these rocks are being kicked up, or it put its leg down, and all this rock is like crumbling from its movement. Um, Very simple background, but very effective and evocative. Oh, once again, obviously it's in a cave system. Obviously, other colors have been in cave systems before in their art, but red has a strong connection to earth and rock, so that sort of idea of exploring it. Calderon Sky Warden. Caveron Sky Warden. 4 generic, 1 red. Creature, Cav Soldier. Reach. Void. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or spells warp this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Scavengers look to steal from Cav mining sites. Really make that mistake again. So it's very interesting that it's kind of interesting that this thing has Void, because we see Void is mostly associated with the Monoists. Now, this could just be a mechanical thing because Magic the Gathering at the end of the day is a game. As much as I'd like to say that everything has like some deep philosophical reason for being a certain way, sometimes just because they need the game. Hold on, someone's calling me. Hello. Does it have to be this moment? I'm in the middle of streaming. I'm in the middle of streaming. Does it have to be this moment? Okay, I'll take her out. Okay, my dog needs to go out in a second. So before she poops on the floor or something. So she's very old. She's trying her best. So I think it's very interesting that Void could just be here for mechanical reasons, even though it's mostly associated with the Monoist. It could also represent the idea that Cav that is a dying planet. So it's the idea that it cares about stuff being lost or being taken away, especially since this is clearly some sort of Cav defending a mining site. So the idea that if something leaves or gets taken or is destroyed or dies, this thing will fight harder or get stronger to protect it. Um, Once again, we have a bit of a kind of like a dynamic, like kind of like it's not on like a flat surface. It's like sliding. This person is sliding down on some sort of like slanted surface. It looks kind of very like spiky and craggy. Its eyes are glowing, so it implies like some sort of power or mystery or magic or something. And it has like this electro net. We've already talked about like red's association with like lightning and like emotion and also fire and earth and emotion, and even the cav kind of have like a bit of like a rocky motif a little bit. Like they obviously have scales, but like they have like these sort of like growth that can kind of look like rock or like rocky-ish. Once again, we have like a mining suit for protection. It looks kind of like yellow and like neon green, etc., etc. And has reach because obviously it's a sky warden. So the idea is that like I guess the reach helps it block ships because it's protecting like a some part of Cab, and we know that ships like from Wildcats and stuff are flying all around Cab. So I presume the idea is that it can also block ships and stop ships from leaving or trying to enter. Um, okay, I gotta go check out my dog real quick. I'll be right back. Did you not? Hold on. Why's my thing all cropped weird? Hello? Um, hold on. Back up. Back up. Okay, too big. Got it. And what about you? Okay, I'll be right back. I miss my wife tails. I'm back. I got a snack. Really hot though. Like temperature wise, not spicy wise. Okay. Drinking. Okay, we're back. Hopefully the other dart doesn't need to go out anytime soon. Cameron Turbo Drone. 2 generic, 1 red. Artifact feature, Robot Scout. Do we have a lot of scouts in Magic the Gathering? Like, what's the mechanical flavor of a scout in Magic the Gathering? Because like I know what a scout does in real life, like they obviously scout and check out areas, but let's see. So soldier. Whenever it attacks, enters the battlefield. Enters the battlefield. Enters more. It doesn't really look like scouts have like a concrete identity, but if I had to pick one, it'd seem like entering the battlefield or attacking mostly. They either want you to attack or they want you to enter the battlefield. Which makes sense because if you're scouting, it's like you're going in or entering the battlefield. It looked pretty hard. Anyway. Cavalron Turbo Drone, 2 generic, 1 red, artifact creature, robot scout. Tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+1 against haste late in the turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So I guess the idea is that this robot scouts out the area, and if it doesn't have 70 sickness, it basically lets you follow up with something by giving it haste. So this robot explores the area, and because it understands the area, you can use that information to let something move faster by tapping the robot. Safe, buddy. The whole planet is falling apart. We don't have time for safe. Thorgon Cat Robot Assist. So once again, we have like the leading landscape, like if the horizon not perfectly even if it's rounded, it'd usually be more like this. And once again, it might just be like a more cab that is thing where it's like the whole planet's falling apart, so it's less even, less stable. This art's made by Lisha Hannigan. This robot is obviously red and white. Obviously a lot of red. It's a red card, and we have like we clearly see how fast the robot's going, or how far, because it has like this jet leading all the way here. A lot of red, orange, rock, earth, fire, etc. The one glowing eye is very striking, very nice. Obviously, the robot's main focus is it's the only living thing here. Everything else is actually pretty simplified as a background, or not insanely detailed. Even if the detail is impressive, the detail is there. We have rocks floating up, etc., etc. Honestly, Alicia, part of this art feels like more cartoony than like. Not that Magic doesn't dabble more cartoony. Like the stereotypical Magic the Gathering art style is kind of like just hyper realistic. But Magic does obviously sometimes have more like cartoony or just abstract art in general. I'm not referring to like I'm not talking about like obviously alternate card art in this case. I'm just talking about like just default card art, because like for example, if you scroll up, we were talking earlier about or a couple streams ago about, for example, if you look at Desculpting Blast and Cryo Shadow, like these are very like abstract, not hyper realistic pieces of art. So even Can Magic does have like more cartoony art, and this art feels more cartoony in certain ways. Like I don't really know how to describe it other than the fact that like the way it's rendered, how vibrant the colors are, the detailing. So I'm gonna check out Leisha Honeygun's other stuff and see if it's like a recurring pattern of any sort. I guess maybe I just misread that. I mean, this looks a bit more cartoony, but these look like obviously more realistic. She does have one cartoon. Oh, she did the art for that. Damn. And she's been doing Magic for a while, actually. Probably, if she did the art for that, for Teferi's wife. Oh, she did the art for a Virus Beetle, too. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. So, so obviously the idea is that also the robot's rushing a little bit or rushing somebody else because we don't have time for safe. We don't have time for the most the safest passage. Little breaking. Little breaking. 2 generic, 1 red. What the fuck are these? I don't think we've seen this. They're very interesting creature designs though. Instant. Create a lander token. Then you may sacrifice an artifact. When you do, little breaking deals 2 damage to each creature. A cav landing. So their expression meaning a bad time. So Cythera is the system that cav is in. It's all the main plants we have. It's Adagia, cav, and all the other planets. So the idea that the same within the system. So obviously the idea is that the lander, I guess, is coming in, landing and destroying stuff. And this card lets you sacrifice an artifact when you cast it. And so I guess the idea is that you could play the lander. The lander comes down. You sacrifice the lander to represent it just blowing up and hurting something. It is damage to each creature too. So it's kind of like a little bit of a small board wipe. Obviously, you can also sacrifice. Also, I guess the other idea could be the lander's fault comes in, hits something, or disrupts something, which causes that thing to just like the other artifact to sacrifice or blow up, and then create some sort of destruction. I'm not sure this is a cab. It's kind of hard to say. There's something flying over here. These creatures are kind of like a rocky design, like they're clearly like a rock. I don't know if they're elementals or what, but obviously, once again, we have Verd's connection to fire and earth, with like even these guys looking kind of rocky. I don't really know what's going on back there, but there's like a fiery impact, an explosion like coming outwards, making things run away. These guys are probably dead. It's kind of, I mean, maybe they're starting to survive it, but and once again, these landers don't look as like refined in some ways. They look very like they're shooting like a lot of smoke and fire. They're not like as refined as maybe like some of the like the Uthrosi, the Ilvoy stuff or the Uthrosian stuff. This guy's kind of dark in comparison. Like they're glowing like almost like torches. This guy's kind of dark in comparison, so it makes these stand out. And obviously, this thing's kind of the main focus because these things don't have eyes; they just have a mouth. So they have just enough so you can tell they're scared and horrified, but not really enough eyes to like get the impression to like get that full range of emotion. Really. So there's that. And then yeah, so calves. I don't know. I guess this is calf landing, but. Just like a rough, because I guess the cab, like I've been talking about the cab, like the stuff is clearly like more rough and recycled and like more utilitarian, like less showy. So this could represent like even that comes down to like the landings, for example. Like it just like we need to land. We don't have time for like a bunch of fancy schmancy gentle landing. We need to land. We come in hard. We come in fast. We get what we need and we go. Or it could be like a mining thing. Who knows? Oh, artist Andrew Marr. Melded Moxite. I think I've talked about this card art before, so I won't go too much into it, but Melded Moxite. 1 generic, 1 red. Artifact. When this creature enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Sacrifice this artifact. Create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact token. Only the most skilled matter shapers can imbue Moxite with other raw energies, but the rewards are well worth the dangers. Moxite, I believe in general, just a reference to like Mox as like a cards in Magic the Gathering, like Chrome Mox, you can add 1 mana of any color. Mox Amber. So I think it's a reference to the fact that Mox can just be used to add like mana, i.e. energy, extra energy. So Mox is like can be imbued with energy within the world of the Edge. Jack and the Mox, of course, the most important Mox of all. And Moxite Refinery, which is pretty old. Well, actually, it's not old. Wait, why did I say old? This is like from Edge of Eternities Commander. Within Moxite has the ability for a ship's drive to pierce the Chaos Wall without the edge becomes much smaller. So Moxite might have something to do with their ability to travel faster than light. We're not gonna go over these yet. I'm not sure if I want to. How many commander cards are there? I'm not sure if we have time to focus on all the commander the cards in the commander decks. It might be better just to move on to like some of the articles. Maybe if I Insight Engine. What a weird. With each iteration, the database grows closer to original thought. So I'm going to distract it because these look like very cool. So obviously Mox has and Magic has a connotation with like containing energy or mana. Um, and here obviously the main focus is like the actual piece. It's like the metal itself because the person's face is cut off and we just see their hands and the Mox itself, and everything else is kind of out of focus. Like the hands are less detailed, even like starting up to here. And these are the kind of blurred, like it's not in focus. Like this is like the main attention. Like this has all the focus. It's clean. You can see what's happening. It's clearly like lightning or something coming out of it, energy leaking out of it. It's red, orange, and yellow, so that way you know it's red related to red, but also like some energy's coming out of it. And I guess I don't know. I guess the idea is that when it's African, you may discard a card and draw a card. So maybe the idea is like you can get some sort of information using this or something, and you can mold it into a robot because it's metal, so you can shape into a robot. Oh, this could just be literally mechanical, but it could be the idea that like it represents some sort of instability, or you can learn something from it. And obviously skill matter shapers. It doesn't really convey like that the fact that it's kind of that it could hurt you if something goes wrong because it describes risk here. But I mean, this is probably just for mechanical purposes. Like they probably don't need a card that blows up in your face if you fuck it up. The point is probably that it's just in universe it's unstable, but you know what you're doing, so don't worry about it. I gotta go check to see what that noise was. I'll be right back. I don't really feel comfortable sharing my Discord information like that. Oh, sorry. Also, I'm back. I don't really feel comfortable sharing my Discord like that just so people can catch my streams. It's okay if you miss them. Just subscribe and or follow on Twitch. Also, my streams are very inconsistent to begin with. Also, I don't think you'd be able to see if I'm streaming from Discord. So per se, unless I specifically go out of my way to do it, which I don't always. I usually just go and do not disturb. And I don't feel like going through each person's DMs and saying, "Hey, I'm streaming." Like I usually just put it like in a group chat and move on. Which, speaking of which, I should probably do that for one. Okay, so the sun is in my fucking eyes. Memorial Team Leader. During your turn, other creatures you control get +1/+0. Warp, one generic, one red. Recover the treasures in Caveron's Memorial Vaults by any means necessary. So obviously this card wants you to go wide because it gets +1/+0. So the more creatures you have, the stronger or more effective this card becomes. Which is represented by the fact that there's a bunch of fucking guys. Magic Gathering loves being very on the nose. It's not particularly as subtle in general. Usually it's just, hey, you want to play a bunch of creatures, put a bunch of fucking creatures in the art, so that way you know to play a bunch of creatures, and that this person is at their most powerful when there's a bunch of creatures in the battlefield to reinforce. Once again, it looks like the horizon might be slanted. I can't really tell. It's hard to tell because of smoke. It could just be this person running so fast that they're kind of leading a little bit. But it kind of looks slanted, which again could be a Mist Mountain thing, but it could be showing the instability of Caveron. We have like an interesting I think this was mentioned in the story. I don't remember what it was called. It was like a fiber blade or something, a fiber blade or something. red, wispy, very interesting. Obviously a lot of red and orange, more orange than red, but some red there because it's a red card. Very interesting. I like how like this looks like ash, and there's like a lot of gray and blues. Not so blue as look like a blue card, but like a lot of gray and like more new, like don't like more unsaturated blue, and then there's like a something, some sort of asteroid belt or something, probably a piece of cav or something floating in the air. That's like a more slight, like a bit of a warmer tone of gray to draw a contrast between the cooler colored sky. I already talked about this card before, so I'm not gonna stand too much on it. I think the warp, it is not. The warp is a bit weird mechanically because it represents like their faster than light travel. But I think sometimes, for example, for the angels represents the fact that angels they're made of light on this plane, so they can move as fast as light. For the Drix represents their ability to weft walk, and for creatures like this, I think it just represents. I think for creatures like this, I think it just represents the fact that they have access to ships and stuff that would be able to warp. I mean, there's something to be said about maybe the flavor could be. Obviously, it's there for mechanics because, like, if you're stuck so close to the flavor, then realistically, only ships would be able to have the warp, the warp mechanic, and then also like some Drix and maybe some angels and stuff. But I think sometimes the flavor gets a bit muddled here because if you're just like a player just like who doesn't like read too hard into the lore, you see warp and you're like, why does this thing have warp? But I think the implication is that this person has access to a ship that can warp travel of some sort. And of course, they're coming to recover the treasure, but they do it by attacking you, or attacking people. So. Memorial Vault. 3 generic, 1 red. Artifact. Sacrifice another artifact. Exile the top X cards of the library. Of your library. X is 1 plus the mana value of the sacrifice artifact. You may play those cards this turn. Caveron cannot be saved, but its culture can. So we literally just had a Memorial Vault get mentioned. The Memorial Vault's like basically just vaults within Cav. I think. Hold on. I don't remember if they're just a general term for like the vaults used to preserve stuff. Rumors swirl Memorial Vaults, hardened, self-contained storage facilities built in the earliest days of the catastrophe to store artifacts, treasures, monuments, and even culturally important locations that could not otherwise be brought to Caveron before. Yeah, so basically when the planets started dying, Memorial Vaults are what people built to preserve their stuff so they could theoretically, under the right circumstances, come back for it later. And the Memorial teams look for stuff like that to preserve their culture. So, this is an artifact. So I guess the idea is that you crack open a vault, another artifact, and then exile top cards of your library, and you try to save what you can by casting it, and if you don't save it in time, it gets lost because Caveron is dying. So Caveron, so its culture can be saved, but it can't. A lot of just a nice piece of art. Like there's some lighting coming down. I like seeing like all the different ships. I think some of these are like ships we might have actually seen in some of the card art. Like this, I feel like we've seen that like specific ship before, but I might just be going mad. I don't know. I'm sure there is a reference somewhere to some other card art, but I don't think I remember it. I think I'm getting it wrong. So they're mostly ships and robots. It looks like, and like a cav suit, cav like mech suit. Not a ton to say. Red, a lot of orange and red, and even like that little bit of neon green. I guess these are like maybe like the power claws or whatever they use sometimes, little energy cutters. For contrast, there's like the background's a bit of a cooler tone to it, where it's like blue, obviously, but it's like a little bit of red back there. Yeah, I mean pretty straightforward card. Made by Javier. Is it Javier or Javier Charo? Molecular modifier. I like how big this guy is and how precise this thing is. Like this tiny little point and this big guy putting it, making sure it's like pixel perfect. Molecular modifier, 2 generic, 1. Why does this thing look like so like pixely? Is it always like that, or is that just whatever? 2 generic, 1 red. Creature Kavu Artificer. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gets +1 and +0, and gains first strike until the end of turn. Let's show those bugs our own self splicing. So once again, the bugs being Eumedians, I assume there's no Eumedian in the art. Actually, this person's like a prosthetic leg. I think this is like their foot, which would imply a prosthetic because they're missing like their leg from the knee down. So that's a nice detail. But I guess the idea is that they're splicing like these robots parts onto themselves to basically like, because Cav obviously has like, they have, it's used for mining stuff, but obviously they're limited in some regards because it's a very volatile planet. So there's no guarantee you'll always be able to find the resources you're looking for, even if there's resources to go plunder. So like very recycling, like sticking stuff on. It looks like here like they're using like this leg for kind of like a brace for like part of like their exoskeleton armor. Once again, red landscape. This looks like within the walls of Cav that was like the more stable, which is represented by the fact that the horizon line seems like less. There's still like a bit of like, it's not like perfectly like linear because it's like a rough terrain, but it's clearly not like completely like diagonal like some of the other art we're seeing. So it looks more stable, and here we have like some like the little pylons used to hold the fault lines together. Red, and then we have like a bit of purple. It's hard to tell because of my screen, but I think it's like purplish, grayish a bit. Here we have the Cav, which is like green scales and also like yellow armor. Once again, the neon green, the neon yellow green, and yellowish orange armor. Sometimes it's a bit more orange, sometimes it's a bit more yellow. Sometimes it's so like when it's orange, it kind of reminds me of Rust a little bit, but sometimes when it's more yellow, I guess it reminds me of like construction equipment, almost like how if you, like when you drive by and see like hold on, I'll probably just pull up a picture. Like when you just drive by like on the road and you see like a big construction project going on. Like, it kind of reminds me of like construction vehicles in a way, like the bulky shapes, stuff like that. And goggles, so because they're hyper focusing on this. So I guess the bugs are spliced because it's like genetic splicing because the humans genetically modify themselves. I guess the idea is that they're modifying their equipment by attaching stuff to it. Also, this rock is more of a cool color. It's not like blue, but it is like gray, and so it has like a nice bit of contrast, like the more warm tone of the terrain, etc. And there's a very clear like split between the sky. It almost looks like these are almost like holding up the sky in a way. I think they're. I don't think they are literally doing that. It's just there as like a nice like maybe a bit of a metaphor or just like artistic like flourish where it looks like they're so like there's such a cut between like the like you have here is like the sky. It's actually they could be holding up a piece of earth. This could be like a rock like above this person, like, and this is like the sky, and then this is holding up a piece of earth, and they're between this. But I can't really say. I thought these were just clouds, but maybe I'm wrong. Oh boy, how long have we been streaming? Okay. Nebula Dragon. 6 generic, 1 red. Creature Dragon, flying. When this creature enters, it deals 3 damage to any target. Legend says the first Regent Maximum herself was a dragon. She illuminated the void and the void and get to the Celestial Palisade Light Forging, which is what we do see reference to that in some of the card art. So Light Forging seems kind of like hard light. And it seems to be like what to explain why they can't just make any weapon. It seems like weapons are forged to have like certain modes or constructs that they can form into. So that's probably your explanation for why like they can't just like make their stick become like any weapon. It's probably like this is programmed to be a sword and a sphere. And so here we have Sunstar Lightsmith. There's also pretty interesting lore because I don't think we've heard that reference in the story or even the Planeswalker's Guide. Not to say that it's wrong. I'm just curious if we'll ever see that touched on like at all. And we don't really know if it's true or not. One thing to pay attention to when reading flavor text or just like things in general and stories, like ask yourself who's saying it and why they're saying it. So a lot of people might just read this and go, oh, so objectively the first Regent Maximum was a dragon. We don't actually know that. It just says legend says. So big. This is massive here because it implies that we don't even know if it's true. It could just be a story or like a bedtime story or a myth or something. The first Regent Maximum herself was herself a dragon. She eliminated the void and gets the celestial Palatinate life forging. So we don't know if it's true, and it's kind of important that you consider this when like looking at Magic the Gathering stuff, because the writers have to consider it. So it's like this leaves it open enough for the writers to decide whether or not they want to expand on this or not, or if it's just like a one-off line. I think it's especially important when reading things like Pokemon, because I see this happen all the time with Pokemon. Like, the Pokedex is a liar, and like, yeah, sometimes the Pokedex says weird shit, but sometimes the Pokedex is very clear on what it's saying. It's just like, legend says blah blah blah, or it's a common spiritual belief that blah blah blah. Like sometimes the Pokedex is very clear that on what it's saying is like more about a cultural like how cultural interpretation. Like, hold on, I think Dialga might be a good example. Hold on. Like, okay, a Pokemon spoken of in legend, it is said that time began moving when Dialga was born. So a lot of people might read this and assume that Dialga literally is the reason time started moving. And while we know objectively Dialga has control over time, the way this is framed, we don't know if this is objectively what happened. Is a Pokemon spoken of in legend? It is said, i.e., people think, this is what people say about it, that time began moving when Dialga was born. So this is by no means an objective analysis of what Dialga's exact relation with time is. We don't know for a fact that Dialga is the reason why time flows. And even here it says that time. So we don't know if Dialga's heartbeat is actually connected to time that way. I wonder if it says that like about like Kyogre. Sorry, I could probably go on a whole thing about like how people interpret like Pokemon Pokedex entries, because I think people usually do it very weirdly. When sometimes like Pokedex can be weird, but sometimes it's very specific about like what it's saying or what it's trying to say about. So once again, it is said to have widened the seas by causing downpours. It has been asleep in the machine trench. So we know the Kyogre can expand seas, but whether it created the seas or has widened them is like debatable. But that's a whole other thing. Actually, hold on. Does it say something? Wait. I think I saw something out of the corner of my eye. Sorry. Kyogre is named in mythology as the Pokemon that expanded the sea by covering the land with torrential rains and towering tidal waves. It took sleep after a cataclysmic battle with Groudon. So once again, like, this seems like it's kind of framed like it's kind of nebulous. Like, people read this as objective, but it's like, and mythology can be real in Pokemon, but this kind of framed as like it's kind of questionable, like as to if it's the reason the sea exists or if it just simply has a lot of power over the sea. People mistake it for the god. And it's important to understand that, like, in things like Magic the Gathering with like giant fuck ass dragons, and Pokemon with like weird things that can like rip your life force from your body, it'd be probably way easier to mistake like some sort of entity as like a god or having a divine aspect to it, even though it's like just a really powerful animal. Like, we don't know if Dialga necessarily is the god of time, but it does have like time powers. But is God of Time an accurate description of what it is? I don't really know. As opposed to like some weird eldritch abomination that can warp time. I can't really say. But anyway, so anyway, this art's pretty simple. It's actually really simple. It's just floating in space, red, a little bit of blue for contrast, but mostly red. The dragon is very yellow and a bit of orange, so a lot of warm colors. These plants are blue because it helps bring out the contrast, and then clearly, this dragon is very fucking long because just look at it go. And look, these plants are here for scale. So it looks like it's moving past this planet. So this thing is fucking massive. And we have like a star or something. So I don't think this is in the Sothera system. I would assume not. But I mean, the Sothera Super Void seems like it does produce a lot of light. So who knows? The Regent Maximum, I think, is the person who runs the Palatinates, the Palatinates are technically mercenaries, but the Celestial Palatinate is a mighty state comprised of many species, systems, and worlds with humans, being the most numerous of its subject. The Palatinate is an opulent, dynastic, absolute monarchy under the command of Divine Emperor, the Regent Maximum IV. The Regent Maximum is the head of this divine state, which is considered superior to the mere imperial state of the Palatinate. So yeah, Sumism is the state religion of the Celestial Palatinate. It is a syncretic faith with a living leader, the Regent Maximum of the Palatinate, and many holy sites distributed across worlds and stars in its territory. So, yeah, the Palatate's like a state. Also, it's flying because clearly it's flying through space. And when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage. I don't know. It's a fucking dragon. It probably breathes fire or something. I think there's literally like fire coming out of its like sparks here, like or something. That could be coming out of its mouth. Kind of hard to say. It could just be dust coming out of its fur, actually. But it's a dragon. It might be breathing. It might be breathing fire. Who is to say? Nova Hellkite. One of the early pieces of art we saw that I ended up talking about a little bit. So Nova Hellkite, it's kind of funny because this card the art kind of reads like, is it? But it's just a mono red card. Because it's just the blue and the red combination. Nova Hellkite, 3 generic, 2 red, creature dragon, flying haste. When this creature enters, it deals 1 damage to each creature an opponent controls. Warp, 2 and a red. So sometimes we see warp on like these weird like cosmic celestial beings, and I guess the idea is that maybe they have some sort of ability to, because like Drix can web walk, but it doesn't seem like they're literally the only species that can like warp travel. It seems like, because for example, we know cats can web walk. So I guess the idea might be that Drix are the only sentient species that can web walk, or at least the first ones that the pinnacle met that can web walk. But it seems like other weird animals, like maybe the Nova Hellkite might be able to web walk. Also, it's very cool that's eyes like a black hole, and this, which probably implies that the thing is fucking massive, or the black hole is weirdly small. And I have to assume that because that might not be within the Sotherian system, but who knows? Obviously red because the dragon's red, but also it's like a bit of blue and I do like how like the red is almost looks like branching lightning. Like you could follow this like branching lightning in a way, like some of it. So that's pretty interesting, and it obviously just forms the shape of a dragon with like the cosmos represent like almost forming like shadows, and then like red, like this like red like form like this red cosmic dust forming like lightning or highlights, or where the light would theoretically be hitting the dragon in some ways. And it doesn't have a face, which sometimes that's used to add like a bit of mystery to, like, to characters, like so you hide their face so you can't see their expressions. And not only is this a human face, the dragon expression may not like show expressions in the same way a human might, but also has a void, a black hole in front of its face, which could also imply like maybe a little bit of danger. It has flying because it's in space. It has haste, and it has wings, and it has haste. I don't know. It's haste because it's red. I'm not sure if it can particularly convey speed, but you can warp it in, and then you can haste, fly, and smack someone in the face with it. And when it enters, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So I mean, dragon maybe breathes fire, but it is a bunch of cosmic shit. So who knows? Maybe it just rains like cosmic dust on you. Obviously, this shade of blue seems to be very different from this shade of blue. It seems like this shade of blue is like more for like the background, and this is like more for like around the dragon to help draw like a distinction a little bit, where you could view this as almost being like a sky, or emphasizing like the dragon's head with like some of the lighting around it. It's like its head's like literally glowing, like it has like this blue glow coming off of it, despite the fact the dragon's red. So, and stars are blue for some nice contrast. So very interesting art overall, and I do like how wispy this looks. Like it's made of gas, like it's a living thing, but it's also clearly still made of like some sort of space dust or gas or cloud or something. So when it moves, it has like this little wisp flowing behind it, which gives it a very like spiritual or like cosmic kind of vibe to it. Orbital plunge. What the fuck is this? It's like some sort of creature. Some poor space creature. I think that might be Caveron. I can't really tell. I just see eating fucked up planet. I'm like, that's probably Caveron. Once again, that's like one of like the Cavu landers. Orbital plunge, like the landers we saw on. Hold on. Like this looks exactly like the lander we see on Little Breaking, like this. Like just for comparison. Anyway. Orbital Plunge, 3 generic, 1 red. Sorcery. Orbital Plunge deals 6 damage to target creature. If excess damage is dealt this way, create a lander token. So yeah, lander. The cap pilot lethally ignored his lander's collision warning. So I guess the idea is that you're basically throwing a land, so it's a lander plunging into the atmosphere and hitting something. So if it deals 6 damage, the lander just hits it and gets caught in whatever it collided with, and then you don't get it. But if it's big enough, the lander basically flies through whatever it is, hits it, and then keeps going, and then you get a lander token, which helps you look for lands because it lands on the planet below. So red card, a lot of fire and orange in here, but also like a lot of like blue, like turquoise blue, which helps just kind of like make this way more striking. Of this like almost like this invading light or force coming out of the frame and then just hitting this poor thing. This poor turtle flying space thing. Um, and then going to the planet below, which has like the planet once again has like a little bit of like dull red to it. So neat. All of this here, the focus is clearly like the fact that it's colliding with this thing, because this thing is like very clear, like, and more saturated, and the background's like more like has like this layer of like turquoise over it, like it's part of the background. Like it's like this part, whatever's happening here is the most important thing that's happening. By Ink Nugget, Incognate, the artist. Or play Pangolin, a very fun card to use in draft because it's very straightforward. You play artifacts, and once you play it, it rewards you for it. Or play Pangolin, one generic, one red. And Pangolin is actually an actual creature. I'm not sure if everyone knows that, but like I feel like everyone knows it at this point because people like know what Sand Slash is from Pokemon. But Pangolins are some Pokemon looking motherfuckers though. They're like this. What a Pokemon looking motherfucker though. Artifact creature, Robot Pangolin. Whenever another artifact you control enters, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. It wasn't the most efficient design, but the miners refused to part with old Pangy. They're honestly based for that. So, obviously it's clearly a Pangolin, but it's like very sharp spines on here, made of metal. It's looking at some sort of metal here. I don't know if the idea is that because these look like these don't look uniform. It looks like they're either very worn out, they're like pieces of like scrap that are like been cut into like triangles and added to it. It's clearly sitting on some sort of like not branch, but like a rock outcrop or something, because you see like these back here, but this one's like obviously more horizontal and more spiky. And then you have, and the way the lava's frame is very interesting because it circles like around the creature's face, which helps draw your attention a little bit. Like it kind of goes here, and the place where it kind of loops the most is kind of like around the face, so it helps draw your attention. There's like a more cooler color sky, but also like a lot of fiery clouds and dust and whatever you have. I'm not really sure what the flavor is, other than the fact that it cares about artifacts. It helps miners, so I guess maybe the fact every time you play something, it helps look for resources. But it could also be that when you play it, you can give it energy to add that some of that scrap to itself in some way. But I'm not 100% sure. It could just be mechanics. You need to care about artifacts. Here's the thing that has a reason to care about artifacts. There you go. So this is actually Tunnock. I was thinking to myself just now. That's why it's quiet. Like, is this Tunnock? Because if you look at this card, like there is a card. Tunnock does have a card. Whoops. Like I was thinking to myself, like, is this Tunnock? Because like Tunnock has like these like has very striking hair. So it's like Tunnock with hair, like with the hair horns, and it says story spotlight. So I'm assuming this is Tunnock. I'm assuming it's Tan because it runs with Tan the Man, because it's like in the story they refer to him. Sammy refers to him as Tan the Man. 2 generic, 1 red. Pain for all. Enchantment aura. Enchant creature you control. When this aura enters, enchant creature deals damage equal to its power to any other target. Whenever enchant creature is dealt damage, it deals that much damage to each opponent. The agony that consumed him also gave him clarity of purpose. So the agony that consumed him is, we know that Tannock, it's the asteroid I was talking about earlier. Where like basically an asteroid is about to hit a city with like a massive population, and he meant to destroy the asteroid, but he accidentally redirected it so it hit like a smaller town. And even though you could argue like trolley problem, like he did save more lives than he killed, for the cab that was a big no because that was like things were fair and equal, and then you fucked it up because now they didn't have a chance to react because you suddenly moved it, and Tannock feels really bad about that. Although I will say his feet look different here, I think. Then hold on. Yeah, his feet look different. I don't know. And some of the other art, he has like more like dinosaur feet, and some of the art is like more like people feet. But so I guess the idea is that like the grief that consumes him. So when Aura enters, he lashes out, and then when he's dealt damage, he fights back. But not lots to say about old Tannock here. Like, once again, it's just like orange armor, a lot of neon yellow. We have that lightning because red's comparison to lightning. I do love like the ripple effect and how it's like literally warping space. like the ground around Tanak. That's pretty cool. Like just shows how powerful it is. What like the claws he's using, or whatever they are. Um, and also because it gives a little sense of like action, I suppose. And even his feet aren't like perfectly even, so that gives like a sense of like dynamicness to whatever's happening. Um, the background, I mean, red, orange, not a ton to say. You can see his face. So Plasma Ball. I think I already talked about this before, but Plasma Ball, 1 red, sorcery. Plasma Ball deals 2 damage to any target. Plasma Ball deals 3 damage instead of a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn, or a spell warp this turn. Excessive energy from the Moxite core is focused into a destructive ray of plasma. It's kind of interesting that it cares about Void. Now that we have the context that Moxite might be related to how the faster than light travel works, because I guess the idea is that if a ship suddenly comes in or leaves, then maybe Moxite's being used to further empower the shots. Who knows? But obviously, fire explosion behind here to help, and the ship's coming out of it and then firing like plasma bolts. So the plasma ball could refer to this, and also maybe like a little bit of these. But I guess more of this is the main focus. Obviously, plasma has a connection to red because red cares about lightning and fire. Those are both forms. Those are both forms of plasma. The ship feels like a cav ship, but it's kind of more blocky and angular than some of the other ships we've seen. I like how it's like there's little flames coming off the wings, like it's coming out of the explosion very clearly. A blue sky in contrast to like more like the red lighting on the rock, and yeah, and like the neon again. That's like the neon green gab stuff. Done by Vico Menezes. Menezes. I don't know. I've already talked about this card before, so that's probably the reason I'm skipping over. Also, I'm just speeding up because I've been streaming for a long time, I think. Let me just see how long. I don't know. Possibility Technician. Let me drink some water real quick. Possibility Technician. 2 generic, 1 red. Creature Kavu Artificer. When this creature or another Kavu you control enters, exile the top card of your library. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may play it if you control a Kavu. So, okay, we get a little bit of Kavu Matters, which is, I was hoping to see a little bit of this. I don't necessarily like play that much. Like, I'm not planning to play like a Kavu deck or anything, but I think it's cute if they can make like a little Kavu commander or something. Warp, one generic, 1 red. So warping here feels like it's a little more obvious because this person's clearly on a ship. So I guess the idea is that their ship can warp or is warp capable. So this cares about other Kavu, and I guess the idea is that like it's about trying to figure out a way to maybe save other Kavu, because we know that the Kavu are protected species because their planet is dying, so they might be a bit endangered or close to being endangered potentially. So I guess the idea is that it's trying to protect other Kavu, and it does this by whenever another Kavu enters, like it looks for like a new possibility or some way to protect them or figure out or see what they know. Hold on, is this not Impulse Draw? Hold on. Whenever this creature or another Kavu you control enters, as the top card of your library. For as long as this card remains exiled, you may play it if you control Kavu. So it's not Impulse Draw, but I guess if you don't have any Kavu on the field, you can't use it, which is the trade-off. Although it seems really good, because it seems like you're playing like a Kavu deck of some sort, like in Commander. You basically just have those cards forever, and they're not in your hand, so they're not beholden to like the hand limit rules, where like if you have 7 cards and you go over to discard the on your end step, so you can just have like 10 cards in exile, and just keep having Kavu on the battlefield. Although your opponent can't see it, unlike the cards in your hands. So, Kavu Artificer, interesting that doesn't care about artifacts, but it makes enough sense. So also Possibility Technician, so that idea of like whenever a Kavu plays, it's like new possibilities. You can see all the things you can be playing. I'll have to say like a lightning. This one's more yellow than yellowish green, but it's kind of weird that this is like more just like closer to like just green as opposed to like yellowish green, and this is more just like yellow. But we have a fire explosion. Maybe the idea could be that it's pouring energy into this some sort of I was thinking, yeah, maybe it's stalling like something happening on Caveron, maybe like some sort of explosion. It could be installing some sort of explosion or Caveron coming apart. It could also just be like some sort of energy source that's like powering up or something. Who's to say? And very interesting for a red card because usually the reason red has impulse is like the idea of like acting on emotion, acting right now. If you don't act on it now, you just lose it forever. Like it's not like red isn't like encouraging you to think super far ahead per se. But I guess as long as you control a cav, you can cast it. So I do love the goggles here. I love this guy, this person's face. Also, their suit is red. Like their suit is red. Red Tiger Mechan. This thing was fucking tearing it up on in my drafts. Let me tell you, I love that shit. This is like the most like Gurren Lagann like fucking anime mech shit I've seen. Red Tiger Mechan, 3 generic, 1 red. Artifact creature, robot cat. Haste, warp 1 red. 1 generic, 1 red. While the Cabaronian tiger has been extinct for centuries, its renowned ferocity endures. So yeah. So here's like some sort of monoist ship behind it, like firing on it. I don't know. But it's like missing, and clearly it's in some sort of combat. But the mono ship is framed right behind it, and there's also like this weird swirl, like also centering around like the Mechan. So clearly the idea is here that the idea here is like this is the point of focus, like you look like this thing is centered in where all the action is happening. Obviously red because red card, even though there's like a lot of purple. And it has like the glowing green claws. It's hard to see how stuff has a face. I don't know if that's like its eye or what. It's clearly moving very fast because it looks like it's being shot at, but it's like avoiding all the shots. It's just flying through the sky with like this jetpack. It's kind of funny that it doesn't have flying when you think about it because it looks like it's flying. But I understand that like obviously it's not flying. If you read the card, it's just like moving very very fast because they're like turbo thrusters or something. And I like how unstable it looks like. Like it has like lightning coming between. Like it's very very unstable. It'll probably explode. In this case, I don't know if the warp is supposed to represent that. Maybe that the red tiger Mechan can warp, or maybe it's just moves so fast it represents just suddenly appearing and then disappearing. Warp seems like a little bit like variable in terms of flavor. Like it doesn't represent just web travel in some respects, but maybe it also represents this thing having access to a ship that can warp in and drop it off and then leave. I do also love the frills in this thing. Anyway. Oh, also, if you don't know what the difference between a robot and a construct is, within Magic the Gathering, as of now, because things change in Magic the Gathering, as of now, a robot is basically something that's like it's like an actual machine that's like powered by like electricity or something that produces electricity. A construct is more like an animated piece of metal. So if, for example, if I like metal bend something into a metal humanoid and make it walk around by using magic, that would be a construct. But if I like go in and like add wires and like programming and it's moving based on that, then that would be a robot, and that would be the difference. Like a robot's like more like an actual machine as we understand it, and a construct is more like is more just like something being shaped and like puppeted by magic. Revenant Elemental, 1 generic, 1 red. Creature Elemental, reach, landfall. Whenever a land you control enters this creature gets 2/+2/0 until the end of the turn. Even until exit state, those in power on Caveron refuse to acknowledge that the planet was trying to tell them something. So yeah, we definitely have that bit of like greed or giving too much into like maybe desire or emotion, even at the expense of the world around you or other people, as like maybe a flaw of red. Obviously there's a very red tint to it, but also like a little purple and black, which this card isn't a black card, but I'm wondering if maybe that references like maybe a bit of the greed going on here, like the idea that like they're putting themselves above like everyone else. But who's to say? It could just be purple. It's smoke. Obviously elemental born from Cav. I do like how jagged and like broken apart it looks like. Like the planet itself is also broken apart, so it makes sense that the elementals from this planet might represent that. It also doesn't have a face. It makes it very ominous. But landfall, I mean, reach. I don't really can't. I mean, reach. I guess it can just reach very far, and maybe has some sort of gravity or planetary connection. Landfall. It makes sense that things related to Cav might have landfall because that Caveron might have landfall. I might care about landfall because Caveron that is constantly like it's a tumultuous terrain. Things are constantly colliding into each other. A rock could have suddenly like an entire mountain could just land on you. So, But also, it makes sense that there's lands in the set because you have things like landers and exploring planets, etc., etc. And this thing makes sense as caring about landfall because it's a part of the planet. So whenever it has access to more lands or more areas of the planet, it can roam. It gets more powerful for a little bit. Although I have to imagine that hearing like your boss or whatever like refusing to acknowledge all the shit that's happening to your planet as it dies, even on Exodus Day, was probably insane. Like we're backing people. Don't worry, guys. Everything will be fine. The Exodus Day is just a small issue. We will come back in like a couple. Like no, bro. We're fucking cooked, bro. Also, there's something going on in the background. I don't know if these are like structures, but obviously this is on Caveron. And once again we have that slanted horizon. It's like yeah, it's curved, but also it's like really really slanted. It's like which gives a sense of like instability. And I love how like this elemental like the smoke resembles like cosmic like space dust. Like it's like because it's a embodied. Well, it's not the embodiment of the planet, but it's like it's connected to this planet, which is like a giant celestial object. So rig for war. One generic, one red. Target. So this is another one of those cards that was doing some work in my drafts. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike and reach until the end of turn. We build our beam cutters to mince bedrock. Should slice an E-Median hull with no issue. Once again, beefing with the E-Medians, I feel kind of bad for them. But here we have once again goggles. So we saw some other people with goggles, and here the idea might be that once again to cover the face to show that the action is more important. But that's kind of hard to say because we saw some other cards that were specific creatures that also had goggles. I don't know if we've seen this robot on any card, but I love the way this looks out of place, which helps bring focus. So this helps bring focus to the fact that like it's being rigged for war. Like the rest of the robot isn't like covered in weapons or weapons that we can see at least. But here's like clearly like a blade that like stands out as different from the robot, which helps contrast it. And I love like how this person's like hooked up to something as if almost like to supply like their tools energy. Not a ton to say. I mean, with the neon green, orange, a red, orange background. I love how the goggles like I don't think they might be literally glowing, but also could just be the light bouncing off the goggles, which helps give like the anime sheen effect. Obviously rigging for war, so like it basically makes things more combat ready. So it gets +0 first strike and reach, so it can actually fight. Interesting that it gets reach. I guess the idea is that it's rigging for war, so it can also fight like spaceships and stuff, but also first strike because it hits first, it moves faster, extra damage. Beam cutters. So here we have like a little beam cutter, and it could also. And once again, we have reference to the E-Median conflict. Although there's no E-Medians in the art. Roving actuator. What's an actuator? Remind me again. A machine that moves or controls components in a system by converting energy into physical motion. Okay. So, converts energy to physical motion. Void. When this creature enters, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, exile up to one target instant or sorcery card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard. Copy it. You may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. I guess maybe it's converting energy somehow. Like when something leaves or a ship like comes out of the weft, it's converting into energy to use to cast spells, which maybe might be the actuator. Not a ton to say. This is a very cute robot, though. I fucking love this. So it's got like this. I don't really know what that is in there. Some sort of energy. Who knows? Moxite, Warp, Glob stuff. Once again, a bit blocky because it's like Cav Tech. Some green, yellow, a lot of like red, orange, yellow because it's a red card. Not a whole lot going in the background. Just like a repeating surface, and then. Yeah, not a whole ton. No, there's not a ton to say about this card. But hey, does it spell sling? I forgot to read the artist. Oh my god. Oh my god. My life is over. So... Bam. Not like that, bro. So, roving actuator is Sergei Glushakov, who's done some work. I do love this card. I do. Actually, this is a really cute way to do the card. It's like on the backside. It's got little stats. Oh, it's really cute. Diana Franco for Rig for War. Remnant Elementals by Nerietta. Oh, they drew fucking sexy Asterion. You know they were cooking, bro. But oh, it's Spider-Man. I figured out card pose. Illusion of Ice. Actually, holograms being illusions kind of interesting. Um, Simon Dominic did the art for Red Tiger Meccan, and Antonio Jose Manzaneto did the art for Possibility Technician. A Chrome as well, and they actually did a lot of. Sorry, holy, what? What's this for? Jumpstart. I guess that's like one of the card pieces, like the deck cards. I don't know if this guy has this guy been doing art. I don't know, a little bit. Um, Ruinous Rampage. One generic, two red, sorcery. Choose one. Ruinous Rampage deals 3 damage to each opponent. Exile all artifacts with mana value 3 or less. Cab Battle Rare teaches that there are no malfunctions in the battlefield. There's equipment that needs to be utilized differently. So here we have the idea of, like, once again, the Cab seems to have like the philosophy of almost like embracing the chaos of the universe instead of trying to fight it and bring order to it. It's like, as Tanak puts it, there is like fairness in chaos. If it's just naturally occurring chaos, that is fair in its own way, according to Tanak. So here you have this idea that, like, like random shit happens, but it's like the Cav have this philosophy of being able to roll with it. Here you have this poor EU midi and get their fucking head fucking caved in. Like, what the hell, man? And it's clearly like some sort of claw weapon, so I guess the claw stopped working, so he just grabbed it and just bashed this poor person's head in. Um, of course, a lot of orange and red around the color palette, although the E-median is green, because the E-medians are usually green aligned, although the big red eyes are very striking and interesting. And this is like white for contrast, clearly, despite the fact that it's usually like their equipment usually seems like it's kind of more in red or orange or rust. Ruinous Rampage deals 3 damage to each opponent, so it's a rampage. So you either deal damage to everyone or you exile a bunch of artifacts because you're sacrificing, because you're destroying them. Um, Although maybe this could be a bit more flavorful because it's I mean, it's just a Ruinous Rampage because the flavor says like would imply that maybe you should sacrifice an artifact, but I'm probably reading too much into it. This art is by David Astruga. Rust Harvester. 1 red. Artifact creature robot. Menace. Exile an artifact card from your graveyard. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Then it deals damage equal to its power to any target. It scrounges Cavern's wasteland, unaware that its home can no longer support its purpose. Yeah, so Cavern has basically, I guess, been overly minded for resources in some parts and it's falling apart. Once again, we have that very slanted like horizon line. Once again, Cavern's falling apart, so even the horizon itself is not stable. It seems like there's some stuff going on. This is very blocky, but it kind of looks like this might be like the actual robot body, but it's very hard to tell. I think this is like the body. It's just walking these like little legs, and it's picking up stuff to reuse as scrap. Menace. I don't really know how to Menace. Is this thing really that scary? I don't know how big it is. Maybe it's a little scary. Exile an artifact from so I guess the idea is that it's recycling stuff. So you can exile an artifact from your graveyard and put +1/+1 kind of creature on this creature, and then deals damage equal to its power to each target. So I guess the idea is that because this is like looks like some sort of molten material. So I guess the idea is that it's taking stuff from your graveyard, reducing it to adding it to itself to make itself bigger, but also like the lava spills out or something, or molten metal or something, which hurts somebody. And there's more of it to throw on people. I guess the more equipment you are melting down and adding to yourself. I love the rust color though. All this rust. Slag Drill Scrapper. I do love this art because the eyes remind me of like crab eyes a little bit, but Slag Skill Scrap. I forgot to go over the art of the previous thing. Back up. This one is by Jake Moray. Okay, I'm pretty sure we've seen some of the art. Bit of reunion. I fucking love playing that card, bro. Slept on, honestly. Dackon Shadow Slayer. Slash skill Scrapper. Artifact creature, Robot Scout. 2 generic, tap, sacrifice another artifact to land, draw a card. Who cares if it rips the asteroid apart? We got what we needed. Isn't this how you ended up with ripping your planet apart? Whatever. I mean, I guess it's like on a completely different scale. Via Cab Moxite Baron. Edgar Sanchez Hidalgo. So, obviously the flavor here is this little robot that's mining. And so you can either take an artifact and rip it apart for resources, which in this case is card draw, or you can rip apart a land, like an asteroid or something. To get resources, which in this case, once again, is card draw. Once again, a lot of orange and heat and fire and earth to like emphasize like the red alignment and like the green eyes. For a little contrast, you can clearly see it. The rest of the background like is not a ton going on. It's like, kind of like unfocused. Like this is clearly the main focus because these are literally blurrier and unfocused. There's a little bit of red here, but it's mostly like cooler colors, like to bring contrast to like the warmer colored area that this thing is drilling through. And I love like how the drill is like red hot, but also looks like it might be an energy drill, like some sort of energy or beam whirring around it. Yeah. Systems override. So once again, the emails, man, they really fucking show the email getting shit on. Oh my god, I didn't realize. I also I love how the Super Void is here. System override, 2 generic, 1 red. Sorcery, gain control of target artifact or creature until end of turn. Untap that permanent. It gains haste until end of turn. If it's a spacecraft, put 10 charge counters on it. If you do, remove 10 charge counters from it at the beginning of your end step. So I think the charge counters thing, the charge counters thing is just so you can use it. You can use it because it kind of suck if you like, I control your station, your space station, your spacecraft. It does nothing because it can't. So I guess the idea is that you can take control of it and then suddenly it's like a creature and you can swing in with it. Here we have them, I guess, taking control of an E-Median spaceship. And I don't know what those are. Are those rockets or something? Or just other ships? But obviously, so red has like a lot of like take control of target creatures things. With blue, it's usually like take control of target creature. But the difference is that blue is more about like perfection through knowledge. So it's like it's like the idea is like it's trying to get it right, like quality over quantity. So the idea is that like blue can takes control of something, but takes control of it like more permanently, but it doesn't get haste and it moves a bit and like it doesn't untap all the time. But red, it's like more like it's the idea that red is a philosophy that's all about listening to your emotions. So sometimes the idea is that red's really good at appealing to your emotions or using magic to inflame your emotions. So that way it's like, hey, isn't this fucking suck? Don't you want to attack this guy? And the guy, and like it takes control of something for a second. But because emotions can be very fleeting and aren't always like, based on like sound reasoning, it's only temporary. But in this case, I guess the idea is that it's a temporary like take control of your ship or creature by hacking the system. And then you lose control of it. But it's only for a moment. Then you lose control for a while. Once again, another E-Median ship. I love how the Super Void is drawn in this, but it's obviously a bit more red than usual. Even it's like a little bit of like a pink tint. It's maybe like a little bit of purple. Of the Super Void's like purple coloration, but clearly it's mostly red because it's a red card. It looks very ominous in this picture, and we have red and orange coming out of this, and then like orange and yellow lightning. Which again relates to red's connection to lightning, and the green E-Median ships. The greens are the E-Medians mostly green line, and they have like this little blue sometimes for contrast. There's also like a little bit of a glow behind certain parts of the ships, which I guess helps like draw a distinction between the ship and the background a bit more. Art by Hardy Fowler. So once again, we have more Cav E-Median conflict. Tanuk, second steadfast. So Tanuk is a pilot in the story. If you haven't read the story, Tanuk's a pilot and a really good one. And Cavs have really good reflexes, so that also helps. So steadfast second. Their second. He's second to Sammy, who's the captain of the ship. 2 generic, 2 red. Legendary creature, Kavu pilot. Other creatures you control have haste. Artifact cards and red creature cards in your hand have warp. So this is actually a very nice flavor because Sammy, who is the captain of the ship, is a red card. So it pairs very well with Sammy. And Sammy also cares about artifacts. So Sammy's red-white, but Sammy also, like, spells you cast have affinity for artifacts. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tap creatures, create a 2/2. So the idea is that, like, it works with both versions of Sammy, and the fact that Sammy is red, so you can warp Sammy in, and also that Sammy gives spells affinity for artifacts. So they pair very well together in the fact that you could warp stuff in, and they'd have affinity for artifacts and stuff. Honestly, I kind of hope we get like a Sammy Tanuk partner or something, partner commander or something like that, but we'll see. Or maybe just a Sammy and Tanak team up card for like a commander deck, but I think that'd be cute. But sorry, your water. Other creatures you control have hate, blah, 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 whatever this. We're a few points short of a skeleton crew, Sammy, but we got plenty of spine. A few points short, it's like a really pushing it. They had like two people until the story started, and then they had like 4 or 5. So once again, so the text portions look a little bit weird in this one, but I think at first I thought it was just like a weird, maybe like an accident, weird inconsistency. But I think the idea is that he's being warped. He's being like, as they enter like the weft or whatever, they move at max speed. He's being like stretched out a little bit. Obviously we have like this. It's kind of like a red, violet, red pinkish. Kind of more of a pinkish here, but a bit of red here, and then just a little bit of red here. But it's mostly like blue and like purple. And the blue is hitting like Tank's face which creates a nice contrast. I love how basically the ship is moving so fast that even the light has like streaks. Like it's almost like it's moving so fast that light like near light speed. The thing is that it's moving so fast, it's getting close to light speed, and like time is becoming funny. This could also be web travel. I'm not 100% sure, but the ship they use can't web travel on its own. It needs like, to be like docked. But yeah, so I just love the flavor that this works really well with Sammy, because if you play with the other Sammy card cares about artifacts, and Sammy themselves is red, so it pairs very well. So yeah, I'll be more. I think I'm gonna probably make a schedule for streams. So I did start this at like 4. Terminal Velocity, 4 generic, 2 red, sorcery. You may put an artifact or creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That permanent gains haste. When this permanent leaves the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its mana value to each creature, and at the beginning of your end step, sacrifices permanent. And victory was the best retirement gift the Admiral could have asked for. Yeah, flavor's pretty straightforward. You crash your fucking ship, you kill everything, ship dies, explosion of glory. Obviously gains haste, so you can swing with it. And it works with artifacts or creatures, because I guess the idea is that you want to be able to run it with spacecrafts. But it's terminal velocity, so I guess it could just apply to just anything with enough physicality, like a creature or artifact, as opposed to an enchantment. These look like they might be E-medium ships, but it's a little hard to tell. They have some of the similar shapes, but it's hard to tell because the coloration is kind of hard to see with all the shit happening. And I don't know, this guy's just cheering on, having the time of his life. This person, I love the sparks coming off, like the ship has like some sort of safety thing to try to prevent you from like fucking crashing the ship, but this person's just like raw strength, just like pushing it, and there's sparks coming out. Or either that or whatever this thing's connected to is like just under so much pressure. Obviously a lot of red and orange and fire. I talked about fire enough in its relation to red, and heavy contrast like all the red. So the red, so clearly like some sort of emergency light going on here, but in contrast to all this red and with a little bit of neon green, but all the red and orange, we have like a lot of cool colors. Like these are like maybe a little bit green, maybe some weird shade of turquoise, but they're very like whitish blue, turquoise-ish, and blue. So you have a heavy contrast between like the red fiery of the red fire of terminal velocity, and then the like calmer, cooler blue, turquoise. It's a bit hard to tell, but that's clearly blue. But this is like I think a little more turquoise, maybe a little bit more green. I don't know. By Zabi gets a little bit the art for this. Terror Pact Intimidator. This is a very interesting looking cab. We don't see a lot of cabs that look like this, but I'm not complaining because, as I said earlier, they mentioned that humans are less dimorphic than most of the creatures on the edge. So the other creatures are implied to have a wider variety of appearances, just generally compared to humans. Terror Pact Intimidator. 1 generic, 1 red. Creature, Cav, Scout. When this creature enters, target opponent may have you create 2 lander tokens. If they don't, you put 2++1 counters on this creature. Kind of surprising it doesn't have menace with the name like Intimidator, but your land or my blade. So basically, it's looking for land, and it says, hey, tell me where the land is so we can harvest the resources. And if you don't, it prepares to fight by getting 2+1/+1 counters. And they do give it to you. Now you know where to go, so you get 2 lander tokens to pull some lands. For red card, there's a lot of green happening here. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm not complaining. It's It's just that Magic the Gathering Magic is usually very unsubtle about how it portrays each color. So usually it's more like yellow green for this stuff, but it's like more like a vibrant like red and green. This armor is like a bit red, like a reddish tint, like a reddish gray, but green in the background. There's a bit of a reddish to the earth here, and I do like how this guy's pointing at you like like you're the one they're picking a fight with, or maybe like a guy to your left, maybe, but it looks like they're pointing at you. I do love that, like a bit of like imagery and foreshortening. It also helps emphasize the claws, like because of how perspective works. The hand obviously looks bigger the closer it is, but it also makes the claws look bigger. So it's like, it makes it look more menacing. Like, hey, give me what I want, or you're getting fucking cut in half. And it seems like there's some sort of like weird eerie light back there, but it seems like there's also some light, some like light coming from the from like behind the camera. Although, I wonder if they're threatening someone to figure out where the like where something on Caveron is, or if they're threatening like an EU Midian or something again. Because I feel like I don't really think about how many EU Midians are getting their shit rocked, like all these red cards. Like, it's kind of mad. Laser. I don't know. I'll look for. Hold on. There's like. It's like a guy just getting domed. I can't find it for like this guy just getting fucking domed. And this ship is called like the ship up here called like Debris Field Crusher, but that's like an E-Median ship back there. It's like, but obviously I think the green's mostly just because reptilian. Although I could see this I could maybe see this that at some point maybe this was supposed to be a green card and stuff got moved around. But it could also just be because Kavu is reptilian in nature. Territorial Bruntar, another card that I love to play in drafts. Territorial Bruntar, 4 generic, 2 red, creature, beast, reach, landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. You may cast that card this turn. Some creatures have adapted to thrive on the unstable chaos of Caveron that is. So once again, we have a bit of a reference to like red philosophy and reference to like chaos and the idea of embracing chaos and volatility. And that seems to be carried through just on Caveron, that is in general, like this idea of embracing chaos and working with chaos. Territorial, I guess the idea is that it's territorial, so the more lands if you play a land, it adds it to its territory and gets more territorial about it. It has reach. I can't really tell you why it has reach other than we need something with reach in the set. Although I guess it looks like it could be very big or very long. And it says it adapts to thrive in unstable chaos. So I guess the idea is that whenever land you control enters, it exiles by default, and you just work with the chaos. You work with what you got. Because you can't really control it. It just goes off. Oh, also hold on. Exiles on the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. Okay, so that's a bit more chaotic too. It just keeps going, and you don't know how many cards you're gonna get. You don't know how many cards you will lose if you can't spend them all, etc., etc. This card seems like a little bit more simplified in some ways. I wouldn't call it like not realistic per se, but like especially here, like the light is just really bright, and then you have like all these blocks, like these rocks breaking apart, and obviously this creates like a very striking like image where it draws your attention to like this thing's face and claws and the power it's exerting as it smashes this place. I can't really tell if this entire thing is like a sort of creator that's creating, or if it's like this kind of like some sort of weird cave structure, and this is like just the creator. But either way, very impressive. I like how it has a bunch of eyes and maybe multiple legs. And the art is by Julie Dillon. Vault Guard Trooper, 4 generic, 1 red. Creature Kavu Soldier. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 2 cards. Give me everything in advance. So once again, we're having a bit of that cares about tapped creatures stuff, and it's being represented a little bit by having other creatures in the card art besides just the one, because the idea is that the wider you go, the more creatures you have to tap. And I think the flavor here is that red is a color that usually cares about action and going in. So being tapped usually means the reason things that lead to your creatures being tapped can be stuff like weird spells causing them to be stunned, but it can also be like I attack, so I tap. I activate ability, so I tapped. I stationed, so I tap. So I think the idea more is that it's trying to reward you for basically going in and doing stuff as long as creatures are performing an action. is rewarding them for their for being proactive. Um, but this and the other one, it took the form of like +1/+1 counters. I think the one we were looking at was Frontline War Rager. It takes the form +1/+1 counters, and this one is card draw. Um, so I don't know if it represents like information or scouting or something, but and all this flavor is kind of reflected in the flavor text, which like give everything in advance. So I guess in the most flavorful interpretation of this card is you swing, you tap, and then you're rewarded for having a bunch of tap creatures that survived. And you get to discard a card and then draw a card. And of course, blue usually draws first and then discards, because the idea is that it's more thoughtful and trying like more um more quality over quantity. But like red's more like impulsive, so it's like I don't want this, so you toss it and you're acting on emotion as opposed to like thinking all the way through about something. I love how like ominous these guys look where like they're like cloaked in shadow, like half their bodies like in shadow and their eyes are glowing, like they're on the hunt. Unlike some of the other cav art, the horizon doesn't really look like it's like at an extreme angle, but maybe because it's hard, but it's a bit hard to tell because there's mountains. Like you could read it as being like the horizon being a bit like this, like around here, but you could also read it as just being like this, and then these are just like mountains. With some of the other art was much clearer. Obviously, a lot of orange, a lot of red. This is a crossbow, which we haven't really seen. I assume it's a high tech crossbow, a sci-fi crossbow, but we haven't really seen a lot of like crossbows and stuff in this set. It's mostly like weird, like lasers and stuff. Obviously play a bunch of creatures, so shows creatures. I like how menacing this one looks. It's just a shadow, like little glowing bits. I love how this is like giving a command, like telling everyone to stop or go or whatever. And once again, I talk about height, and it's used for like to represent power. Here we have this thing standing up on top of like this ridge, while everyone else is like lower than them. So it shows that this one's in charge. And not only is it in charge, but it's clearly in line of sight. Like their ability to see this person is the most important, so that they can see what this person is saying and what this person is telling them to do. Done by David Palumbo, and it's a 5/5. Warmaker Gunship. 2 generic, 1 red. Artifact Spacecraft. When the spacecraft enters, it deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control. Target equal to you. Oh, I just died. When the spacecraft enters, it deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control to target creature or an opponent controls. Flying 4/3. So it is called Warmaker Gunship. It is dropping a bunch of robots. It's interesting. It's interesting that when it enters, it doesn't create robot tokens. So I have to assume the idea is that the damage it's dealing is equal to all. It just drops a bunch of robots that deal a bunch of damage to you. It could also just be firing shots, where like the more robots you have, the more it has to protect, or the more ammunition it has. Once again, all the ship art seems like full art, but it's different from like the Planeswalker art, which isn't necessarily full art. But the Planeswalkers have this effect where they go off out of the frame, like Tezzeret head peeks out here, and here we have a little magic essence coming off the picture. But that represents a sort of freedom that comes with the ability to planeswalk, and so basically, if each image represents like an image or the plane itself, planeswalkers can basically leave that scenario or leave the frame they're in a way that other people cannot. But but ships like Warmaker Gunship, they cannot leave the plane, but they give you extra freedom, because obviously it's a sci-fi space opera plane. So you can only go so far on foot, and ships give you an extra level of freedom that like just walking around a planet does not. Like ships can go explore the universe and stuff. Obviously very like rust colored red. I love like these spikes like flying around, and it's just dropping off robots. Although these look kind of like pinnacle robots more than they look like cav robots, even though the ship looks very cav, very hard edges and like utilitarian, and just like not smooth or elegant or filigree or anything. But these look like the robots look more like, you know, the robots looks more in the same vein as like this guy has like Starport Security. Not the exact same model, obviously they're a bit different, like their heads, but it could just be that cav. I mean, obviously it's, they can just use other kinds of technology that just happens sometimes, but it could also be that maybe they retrofitted some Pinnacle technology. Who's to say? Obviously, War Maker Gunship, it does damage because you can't hear a card like War Maker Gunship and assume it's not gonna like fuck your shit up. Weapons manufacturing, one generic, one red. I did try to run this card in the draft. I could have gone better, but I hopefully one day I get a really good draft where I just have like where weapons manufacturing just goes like ham. Um, One generic, one red. Enchantment. Whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named. Sorry. Whenever a non-token artifact you control enters, create a colorless artifact token named Munitions. When this token leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. Soon we'll have enough firepower to rid a Vendo of its bug infestation. Once again, really just fucking amping up the Eumedian hate. Because we know that not all Cav want to like take a Vendo, and even if they kill the Eumedians do it, but some of them, a lot of them, I guess, do. General Tekvu, Cavaron Memorial Navy. So here we do have a guy, like, there's like somebody there, but they're so far away and so unfocused that you can't really see them. So, like, who they are isn't as important. Despite the fact that we see, like, artifacts and it makes artifacts, this is actually enchantment, which helps us tell that, like, it's the action that's important for the card. Like the weapons manufacturing as an action. So it's creating munitions. The munitions are very flavorful. I do hope it'd be very fun if one day we have enough cards to create, like, a munitions deck or something. I doubt that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'd be here for it if they ever can figure out an excuse to, like, make a munitions commander deck or something. But it's a colorless artifact, and when it leaves the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. And because it's a token, basically the idea is that when it becomes destroyed, because when a token leaves the battlefield, it's just gone. So the idea is that if you make it leave the battlefield, it basically goes off and explodes and deals 2 damage to something. There's like a ton of rust. Look how like you can tell this is rust because there's like a bit of silver. Like of unrusted metal, but this helps add a bit of like a red tint. And here we have like the forges, like the fiery forges, and red associated with fire. And here we have like a bright yellow like sparks, obviously, of like the welding or whatever. Yeah. And this art is made by Marco Gorley. Webstalker Ardent. 2 generic, 1 red. Creature Drix Artificers. So we actually have a Drix in every color except for blue, and I don't know if that's supposed to say that Drix are in every color except for blue, or it's simply that they just couldn't figure out a spot for a blue Drix because it was taken up by some other slot they needed in the set for like balancing reasons, which does happen sometimes. Because Magic doesn't really mess with like blue like four mana factions a lot. It usually just goes 2. The highest usually goes 3, but usually it's like 3, 2, 1, or 5. It doesn't really mess with 4 a lot, but so yeah, they have 1 in every color except for blue. It's gonna have 2 in white though. Which might just allude to like the different ways they choose to protect the universe. Because we know that lore-wise, the Drix basically they had the ability to weft naturally, and when the Pinnacle came across them, they said, "Hey, we'll teach you how to like travel the weft using machines, but you have to like do us a favor." And we don't really know the exact terms of the deal, but we can assume the Pinnacle basically helps them look for Eldrazi and like old world stuff, and also maybe stores like dangerous weapons. I don't know who that was. Webstalker Ardent, 2 generic, 1 red. Creature Drix Artificer. Whenever another creature or artifact you control enters, this creature deals 1 damage to each opponent. Warp red. So the warp in this case represents the Drix ability to naturally weft walk. Although it is an artificer, so it cares about artifacts. Although I can't really tell you exactly why it deals 1 damage whenever an artifact enters the battlefield. Considering the Drix are all about apprehending and collecting like dangerous weapons and storing them, maybe the idea is that it's just protecting them from falling into the wrong hands. So it's like an artifact enters, it protects it, and then deals damage to the assailant, or whoever it perceives to be the assailant. And here we have like it seems like they're using like their stick to create like an opening in the weft. I don't know if these are flying out of the weft or into the weft. So it makes a lot of sense that they're flying out, like the idea like it deals 1 damage. Like these are all weapons that either fire like projectiles, or they just fly out at something. But it could also be flying in, or I'm not really sure. There's not a whole lot going on in the background. It's just like the kind of like movement lines, like implied movement, like rocks like flying away. And then this Drix looks more like a cat face than some of the other ones. Like the other ones look humanoid, but they have more like a flat face, I suppose. And they have like really long cone-shaped ears, or if they're even ears. Again, not necessarily a contradiction. It can be, but they definitely made it a point that some species are just like more have wider varieties than human ones. Also, this could be a mask, but I assume it's just like just like a snout. Um, Obviously a bit of orange and red coloration, like lighting. Not only shows like not only like connects like shows like the power, because even here with the blue lighting, it's like this draws a connection between because they're the exact same color, so it draws a connection between the blue lighting of the face and these, but also like I forgot what I was gonna say. It draws a connection between these and these, but and also you have the light coming from the power coming from the weft or whatever. And I like how the sparkles like the like space. Like these look like stars, but they could also be like just like sparkles or something. But I assume they're kind of like stars or something. I think it's worth walking to somewhere. Oh, and art is by Valera Lutfilina. Zookeeper Mechan. So mechas are basically just the word for like robots. I think Vibes are like the ones that are sentient, but um, so here we have Zookeeper Mechan, one generic, one red. Artifact creature robot. Add red. Six generic, one red. Target creature you control gets +1, +4. +4, +0 until end of turn. Activate only a sorcery. Infinite guidelines fauna from Sothera exhibit proved popular. Unfortunately, the biological zookeepers kept getting eaten. Kind of funny, kind of morbid, but it's a 1/3. So here the Mechan, which is obviously very red and producing this very red light, which helps you know it's a red card, and also helps kind of show its influence over this creature. Like I don't really know if this is like what this is, but it looks like the Mechan basically like attaches itself to the creature, and the light shows kind of like its influence over the creature or something. It can add red, and it can give creature +1, +0. So, +4, +0. So I guess the idea is that it's helping the creature. Although the blue here looks like Aether, but the blue here looks kind of like the sky, like space, but also like Aether, and a very strong contrast to like the red of like this creature and like the Mechan. So it helps draw you even more to like the Mechan as standing out. And there's also like a little baby here, which I don't know if this is like the same species, probably, but and red just tends to give like power boost, but not always toughness boost, or at least sometimes it'll give like uneven, like it'll be extra power and then like less toughness, but like it'll be like +3, +1 or something. Or sometimes it even lowers your toughness. Sometimes it'll give you like +3, like -2. Which like the idea of like red being maybe a little bit more reckless, a bit more impulsive, a bit more just like, hey, I want to attack you and hurt you because with this Magic the Gathering game about fighting, and I will thusly I will boost myself to do it and not worry about toughness. Um, so normally I play Magic. I think that's it for now. Normally I play Magic the Gathering like Arena or something, which I might hold on. I'm gonna see if somebody wants. I'm gonna see if someone wants something, and depending on what they say, I might play a bit of Arena. I'll play like one round of Arena. All right, they don't need anything, so I'll just play one round of Magic Arena. Check my audio. Okay, we red white, so let's play my Boros deck. It says perfected, but I think I still need to work on it because I think maybe I just lean really hard into going in fast and drawing cards. But I have like the 4 mana like Saga that like exiles cards for you, and then you get +1 for each spell. But maybe I just put in like um Ancestral Anger or something. The fine hand, 3 lands, we're good. We just play like Aspire Advantage and like Monastery Swiss Spirit. The Will and Rowan. Oh, what's going on with Will and Rowan? Because last time we saw them, they were like about to come to conflict with each other. Because Rowan was not taking the death of her parents well. Swing. Plays a Temple of Malady. Mountain. I think I'll just play. Maybe I shouldn't just do this because we might get like smited next turn by like a black destroy spell, but we just swing. If we can get Undying, Young Wolf. The Elven Wall makes no lances for Yo. Today's new board, either tomorrow's Hunter or tomorrow's Lunch. We could do some stupid shit like this. We should probably leave up like some mana for Sajiri Shelter, but we can probably just go crazy. Reckless Charge. And now they have to block. But I think the thing has Undying, but... do we keep Shelter, or do we ditch Monstrous Rage? I'm hoping they don't have a board wipe. That's my plan. Doesn't block. Okay, that's mad. They better have some crazy ass plan here. Whenever Hapatra deals combat damage to a player, you may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Whenever you put one or more -1/-1 counters on a creature, create a 1/1 green snake creature token with that touch. Okay, I don't know why they didn't block, but I guess I'm gonna screw either way. I feel like we just run the same thing now. We could run Reckless Rage if we need to, but... we keep this. We got our white man in there. Pays 2, interesting. Probably has a removal spell, right? Red. Yeah, because otherwise, why would you pay 2 if you couldn't do anything? Destroy it? Ugh. Yeah, they just sack in a bunch of removal spells. We might just need to like pull out our protection spells. Also, the -1/-1 counters are really annoying. Like if I have Dreadhorde Arcanist, I might wait to play Dreadhorde Arcanist because I can potentially just play it in and then give it Reckless Charge and then swing in to do something crazy potentially. So if I just leave it there, it's gonna get -1/-1 counter to Oblivion. Blighted Halfling. Yep, add 1 generic or add 1 colorless single man. What? It says you may though. You didn't have to. I'm confused. I'm sure they have some sort of graveyard resurrection thing, but I didn't mean to do. Oh no! I wanted to tap a white and a red to fucking. Oh my god, bro. This shit's probably dead. I want to type white and a red so then I could Reckless Charge in with Trample. Well, thanks for the belated God's Willing. I think I'm gonna not play Defiant Strikes. I think we want to keep something up for God's Willing. I think we just play we try to Reckless Charge in. We could give it favorite Hoplite, which it doesn't have trample, but is menacing, I guess. Good God's Willing. I think we wait to see what they do because we can potentially God's Willing to either protect something from the Death Touch Snake, which is 100% going to be used, or we oh, that's actually pretty good. Okay, she's Reckless Charge at it. We're gonna Reckless Charge over to our Arcanist. That's pretty good. Okay, well, I'm usually I'd say do another because that was like really quick, but I'm not gonna jinx it. I'm gonna stop streaming for now. I'll probably see you guys tomorrow. I'm not gonna stream Edge of the Eternities tomorrow. I'll probably stream a good game, but we'll see. Thank you for the coins though, and the orbs. What do we got in the packs though? Hold on, give me a second. I'm not gonna look at what's in the packs, but I am gonna just enjoy the cards. Spaceman Freighter. Oh, sweet. I'm definitely getting. I'm definitely. I think I got. I do like Afrail. I definitely will definitely just get Kilo Apogee Bind. I'll definitely take one of those. Actually, I can use that for my Jeskai deck now. Do I have it? Like an R set? Wait. Do I have any Jeskai card sleeves? Yeah. What about... Do I have like an R set or anything? I might just run Kilo, but... Man, I actually don't have as many avatars as I thought. I did not have Narset. Thought I would have had her by now. Anyway. Save it, exit. Claim. What do we got? Yarkle Day. Thanks. Alright, I'm gonna hop off for now. I got stuff to do. My stuff will probably mean play games, but it might also be homework depending on my mood. I will see you guys later. Also, my chat is fucking stuck in the wrong thing again. Have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching, even if it's even for 5 minutes or 2 seconds.